Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 749 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Russia is on fire everywhere today, and they are going absolutely bonkers. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine and the news of the ongoing conflict inside of the Russian Federation as the entire border region from the Kursk to Belgorod oblasts has officially collapsed today, with the Freedom of Russia Legion and other allied forces making some fairly large gains over the past 24 hours, and not only that, causing such a serious concern for the Russian government that Putin has openly threatened the use of nuclear weapons at any given moment, as far as we've heard today. We're going to be covering all of this tonight. We have an unbelievable amount of news, not just the news that we covered earlier in our video that came out today, but also a lot of news that came out in between that and now. There is a lot of stuff, really unbelievable stuff, especially from the Russian border regions, because not only am I saying that the Russian border area has completely collapsed, allowing for these forces to advance, we have video proof showing that very thing, as Freedom of Russia Legion forces, along with the Russian Volunteer Corps, the Siberian Battalion, as well as the Free Cossacks, are now rapidly advancing towards the major cities of Belgorod and Kursk, from what we know, and are also causing serious damage to Russian forces. We're going to be moving on into that news first tonight. We're going to be moving on into most of the major news within the rest of Russia in just a moment after we get into this major news at the moment. But this takes us up into the area of the Kursk Oblast first. There is only one area that we know of in the Kursk Oblast that has been taken by the Freedom of Russia Legion, and also from this point forward, we will be documenting and highlighting about a day after it happens, the frontline advances and changes that are going to be happening in this ongoing conflict inside of Russia. I want to make an open disclaimer before we get into the news tonight that the front lines that I've drawn here in blue, which we're calling the Anti-Putin front, are all from what we can gather of yesterday's news. They are not reflective of today's situation, because we want to make sure to have a 24 to 36 hour window in between the front lines we report and where the Freedom of Russia Legion and the Anti-Putin coalition is at the moment, for operational security reasons, to ensure their safety if for some reason there was a Russian watching this channel, or the Russian military was watching this channel. We would not be really making their job a lot easier with the open source intelligence side of things. They're going to have to do that work on their own, or figure that out on their own. And from what we can understand, they're not figuring that out all too well. Today we got to see a film that was made before the Freedom of Russia Legion started marching across the border and into the border village of Tekhino, where soldiers were filming a short little video before they set off to write a brand new page of history. Here is the clip, and I'll be showing it to y'all right here. And let me make sure to pause it, and here we go.
Ведем бой в Теткино.
Регион Свобода России. Название села там подальше, чуть попозже продвинемся. Улицы сильно простреливаются. И дальше еще участковый нас ждет, с которым надо пообщаться. И местные жители, которых нужно освободить обязательно.
Мы живые, мы устали. Но мы с вами. Вместе мы сила.
Слава Украине!
Героям слава! Свобода России!
And that's the end of that clip, but once again showing some of the Freedom of Russia Legion soldiers filming today. This film was actually made within one of the small Ukrainian border villages near to the area of Tekhino, because they mentioned that the actual town of Tekhino was just a little bit further up the road, showing that they were still inside of Ukraine when the video was made. However, we have heard today that the Freedom of Russia Legion forces inside of Tekhino have advanced into the area, at least, according to 24 hours ago, of Popovo-Lizachi, and are now holding their positions. We were able to get a short video made today by none other than United 24, talking about the Russian volunteer battalions that are holding their positions in Tekhino, and also a small overview of other actions that have been taken in support of these free Russian battalions, and also of Ukrainian actions that are happening deeper inside of Russia. Here is the clip.
Welcome to Frontline News. On the 12th of March, Russian volunteer battalions launched a coordinated cross-border attack onto Russian territory, entering the villages of Kozinka, Lozova Rudka, Novaya Tavolzhanka, Nikhotievka, and Tyotkino. With Russia claiming all attacks to have been repelled, today on the 13th of March, a video surfaced published by the Freedom of Russia Legion claiming the opposite, that they are holding out in the village of Tyotkino and that the fighting continues. Also, beginning in the night from the 12th to 13th of March and continuing all throughout the day, Ukraine launched a massive drone attack on Russia. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, over 65 drones were shot down. According to the State Security Service of Ukraine (SBU), targets included oil refineries in Ryazan, Kirishi, and Kstovo. The latter is one of the largest refineries in the country. Russia's Lukoil energy giant, which owns the refinery, said it had temporarily suspended operations. There were also reports of attacks on the Air Force base in Buturlinovka and the military airfield in Voronezh. The situation on the front line in Ukraine remains stable but difficult. According to Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky, who visited the front line today.
But really quickly, we're actually going to cut this video short right here because the summary of the Ukrainian frontline situation is going to be coming a little bit later on stream. But once again, showing that United 24, an official apparatus of the Ukrainian government, is noticing what's happening and also starting to report on the major events happening as well. Once again, with the video clip that we just showed from the other side of the Ukrainian border of these Freedom of Russia Legion soldiers stating that they were in control of Tetkino and also Popovo-Lizachi, a connected village, it does show that they are continuing to have an armed presence within the area, and they are continuing to hold their positions inside of the Kursk Oblast. These are the only positions that we have been able to confirm at the moment that have been advanced on and captured by the Freedom of Russia Legion within this oblast. We understand that at the moment there are no other areas that are being held by the Legion or any anti-Putin or Free Russia battalions. Moving a little bit further south, however, and into the Belgorod Oblast, the story is entirely different, with multiple different axes of advances being recorded today, and apparently the information that we got yesterday of a mythical advance towards the town of Veluki was apparently factually incorrect information or maybe incomplete information. We have not been able to get any additional information or evidence of a Freedom of Russia Legion push towards the town of Veluki, and we are assuming that that push never happened. We now understand, however, that there are 4 pushes that did occur into the Belgorod Oblast. One we're calling the Gorkovsky front, another one we're going to be calling the Grivoron front, over here in this left side, more so north and east in the Oblast. Further down, we also have the small Nekotivka front, and then further over we have the Novaya Tavolzhanka front, which is currently around the village of Shebekino. Based off of all of these, we are seeing that this is a multi-front advance within the Belgorod Oblast, and it appears to have some rather large ambitions, and we've seen the most armed activity and the most frontline action coming from the Belgorod Oblast today, and also the highest amount of Russian vehicles being destroyed through direct action against the Freedom of Russia Legion and the Free Russian forces. Moving on to one of our first clips, starting from the east and heading west towards the Grivoron front, we were able to see that near the town of Shebekino, 2 border guard BMD-2s were destroyed by Freedom of Russia Legion fire, or Free Russian fire. This clip came out from Svoboda Rossiya, Free Russia, and we can see right here one of the BMD-2s, and then a second BMD-2 sitting inside of this tree line. The Freedom of Russia Legion is targeting these near to the area of Shebekino. And we can see here another couple of Russian soldiers standing around one of the vehicles. And it appears that the border guards at the moment may be caught completely off guard by this upcoming attack. We can see that none of them are actually operating or manning the BMD-2. It appears that the crew has actually dismounted the vehicle and are wandering around, showing that the Freedom of Russia Legion has actually been able to get the jump on this border guard unit in this upcoming attack. We see a couple of more Russians, maybe infantry, supporting the BMDs sitting in nearby positions, and we can now see Freedom of Russia artillery, or Free Russian artillery, raining down onto the BMD, and we can now see a drone coming in to get a direct hit onto it, knocking the first one out. We can now see another drone coming in, and a fire now sweeping the field in front of the BMDs, and it appears that this drone is also going to be making a direct hit onto that BMD, and setting it on fire as well, knocking out both BMDs and catching this border guards force completely off guard. The Russian border guard service is an armed force. However, they are usually lightly armed. Usually, a common border guard unit will have a large amount of UAZ 469s, which are a kind of a Russian Jeep. They'll also have possibly a couple of lightly armored vehicles such as BMPs, BMDs, and other kinds of armored personnel carriers that can be called forward in emergency situations. However, the Russian border guards forces rarely ever possess any kind of heavy armor, such as a T-72, a T-80, or a T-90. Those are very rarely seen within the border guards roster, and from what we can see, the border guards units that are already in the area are currently being defeated by the Freedom of Russia Legion and Free Russian forces as they continue to make their advances deeper into the Belgorod area. Meanwhile, within the small village of Novaya Tavlzhanka, the area that the Free Russians have been able to capture overnight, we were able to hear that apparently a new unit that we very rarely heard about is apparently involved in the fight as well. Yesterday, we were able to confirm that the Russian Volunteer Corps, the Freedom of Russia Legion, and not only that, the Siberian Battalion were all parts of the offensive that were occurring. We were also able to hear today, thanks to this picture, that a unit called the Free Cossack Detachment is also participating in the armed activities as well. They are apparently fighting alongside the Russian Volunteer Corps, aka the RDK, when it's put into initials, and appears to be a faction of Cossack separatists that are fighting as Russian nationals against the Russian government. We don't have any information on the size of this unit, the armament that this unit may possess. We are assuming that this unit, considering it's called a detachment, is probably smaller than a company-sized unit and therefore does not make up a large part of the Free Russian Battalion's forces inside of Russia. But nevertheless, it is showing that another armed unit has joined into the fight and is going to currently be helping out with the armed actions against the Russian government. Very nice to see that apparently there are more units in the fray than we originally assumed, and moving on out of the Novaya Tavlzhanka front and towards the area of the Nekativka front, we were able to see that apparently this is also not going to be ending very soon, according to the Freedom of Russia Legion. This is one of the few times that we have heard of the Freedom of Russia Legion apparently planning on staying for an incredibly long time, because they gave an order to the Russian citizenry today to evacuate the Kursk and Belgorod regions. According to the information that we were able to get from Reddit today, the Russian Liberation Forces released an appeal to residents of the city of Belgorod, urging evacuation as they will begin firing on Russian military positions within the area of the city. One of the first times that we've ever heard an official evacuation order being given by the Freedom of Russia Legion and Free Russian forces, and it is showing that they have some very far-reaching aims in this current armed invasion. This is not going to be, from what that statement says, one of the short border incursions that would have occurred a while ago or stayed contained to the very near area of the border. This appears to be something that they are clearly bringing all the way to the city of Belgorod, which is around 30 miles inside of the Russian Federation and one of the largest cities that is that close to the Ukrainian border. Also, we got to see that within the Nekativka front today, some Freedom of Russia Legion and Russian Volunteer Corps forces were advancing under the cover of darkness, and we got to see this in their infrared film right here. Sadly, we're going to have to mute that because there is some copyrighted music, but we can see that.
You know they got to add that Chad music, man. It wouldn't be an army clip without that.
Man, it wouldn't be an army clip without that. You know, you got to have the Chad music. If you don't have the Chad music, you're just not doing it right.
I wonder if they listen to Chad music as they're advancing on the front. Is that something soldiers do in the modern day?
I wonder. And we can see them laying down fire, and we can now see that without the infrared. We see them continuing to lay down fire. And it looks like they're switching in between normal film and infrared. Or thermal, more so. Thermal is probably a better description of this. We can see them continuing to engage Russian border guard forces, and the clip ends there, but showing us a little bit of what's going on the Nekativka front. I also want to make sure that we disclaim this really quickly for a moment. These clips have been jumbled up. We have been able to find the exact location of some of these clips and where they've occurred, showing Freedom of Russia Legion forces. However, while we do know where some of these clips are, we have moved them from front to front. So while we are saying that this clip is from the Nekativka front and the other clip was from the area of Novaya Tavlzhanka, they're actually not. They're actually from all across all the fronts that are currently being fought on, all the way from Tetkino and all the way down towards Novaya Tavlzhanka, but we're making sure to mix them up a little bit once again to ensure operational security wherever possible. However, that does not apply to clips showing the destruction of Russian vehicles. We were able to confirm that the BMDs were lost near the area of Shevakino, and any Russian losses that we show here on the stream, we are able to geolocate them to a very, very close area to where they actually were lost. lost or where the engagement happened, if it shows Russians on film. Speaking of which, we need to move on into probably the largest front in scale, but probably one of the most sparsely populated ones that the Freedom of, or the Free Russian units have been able to take over recently, which is the Gorkovsky front. If you look at this one, you'll notice that there isn't really a lot there, and in reality, there isn't. This is one of the few fronts that we've ever seen that pretty much encompasses just country fields on the Ukrainian-Russian border, but one area that we do know that the the Free Russian units were able to take over was the town of Gorkovsky here along the border region. It appears that they have been able to take this area and also a decent amount of countryside in between Tupspovka and the area over here near Gorkovsky. But this is a little bit bizarre. Usually we see that Free Russian units engage on actions near larger highways, such as the one here at Gryveron, which is an actual paved road and would allow them to advance further inside of Russia at a greater speed. However, we're not really seeing that here. It appears they're going with a brand new strategy of possibly trying to cover ground or maybe even take a roadway that could lead them to access another location, such as Golovchino or some area around there. Also, another thing I'd like to point out that no one has talked about on the entirety of the internet is that there is a secure Russian nuclear facility right here at Antonovka that may possibly be overrun here in the future by Free Russian forces, possibly giving the Free Russians access to nuclear weapons if they have not been moved out of that depot. This depot,
that would be something. Do you think they'd actually try to do anything with them, or just try to secure the facility itself?
They probably will try and secure the facility, and if they do anything with the nuclear weapons, they will probably load them up and transport them into Ukraine, possibly, although that could cause a massive amount of diplomatic hellfire with the Russians and the Ukrainians, and may actually provoke the Russians into starting a nuclear conflict. Who knows? But this is still something that is quite concerning. This facility does not even show up on Google Maps, but if y'all were here a while ago, last year, when the Freedom of Russia Legion conducted an advance into the town of Gryveron, they did actually make it up all the way to Masachevo and nearly into the town of Antonovka right up here, which is the small village that is right outside of this protected nuclear facility. These little bunkers that you're seeing right here actually house nuclear weapons. The areas that are cleared of trees, there are nuclear weapons being stored within those little earthen bunkers. If the Free Russians are able to take this facility with the nuclear weapons inside, which there is a possibility that they are still inside, they could actually start posing a massive threat to the Russians and may be considered a completely rogue force at that point that has nuclear arms, greatly making the situation far more difficult for the Russians to deal with on a governmental level and giving the Free Russians a lot more reign to move around without the threat of the Russians operating too harshly, because now they do have nuclear weapons within their possession. And that's a hypothetical that's coming a little bit further down the road. That has not happened at the moment. From what we know, the Free Russian forces have made it probably into Gryveron at this point. We have a pretty good idea of where they are, but they mostly have moved into Gryveron at this point, but they haven't moved farther up and into this nuclear facility at Antonovka, and from what we know, they probably will not be doing that here within today or tomorrow. They may not actually do that at all, but this is certainly a major concern for the Russian forces. And what I'm trying to get at here, by talking about that, is that this Gorkovsky front is in the middle of a bunch of open fields. Actually, I'm not going to get into battle analysis. I'm so sorry, everyone. I was about to actually explain what they're going to do, but for operational security reasons, we don't really want to talk about that too much, because if we're getting it dead on the nail, the Russians, of course, looking around the internet like everyone does, might get a couple of ideas. So we want to make sure not to talk about that a little bit too much. But moving on from that and into the Gorkovsky area, we did get to see a small Russian border detachment using a BMP-1 get absolutely smacked by Free Russian fire from the Siberian Battalion in this clip. We can see the puff of smoke right there coming off of that BMP, and as they zoom in, the Siberian Battalion is able to confirm that this BMP-1 was completely obliterated by the Siberian Battalion's fire. From what we understand, this was an incredibly small border detachment. It was something like a rifle squad, possibly, using a BMP-1. The entire group, the entire detachment pretty much was wiped out, and any of the survivors were most likely wounded or routed off the field after this decisive blow. That's the end of that clip, but moving on from that one clip in the Gorkovsky area, it is showing that the Siberian Battalion is apparently in this area of the front. That's one thing that we are able to confirm by the footage, and one thing that's quite clear, and they are the ones that are pushing this Gorkovsky front line area. Moving on from that and into the direction of the Grivoron front, we are starting to see some very interesting actions occurring here. We were able to get some pictures today that were taken around the Grivoron front, showing two T-72Bs, which are a fairly competent main battle tank. That's actually a fairly standard main battle tank that you would see right now being used by the Russian army inside of Ukraine. And we can also see a large concentration of free Russian forces, which is very interesting to see, and hopefully they don't group up like this too much, because that could pose a prime target for Russian artillery fire. But still, we can see the free Russian flag waving over the first T-72B, and we can also see the battle flag of the free Russian forces flying over the second T-72B further back in the picture. Everyone's faces have been blurred out for operational security reasons. Moving on to the next picture, we can see another soldier sitting on the front of the upper plate of this T-72's hull and just taking a picture for the camera. Moving on from that and into our last picture, we can also see this free Russian soldier walking around with apparently a little treat, or a little gift as they say, a RPG-7, and it looks like he's just having a fun little time wandering around Grivoron. But moving on from that, we also saw that apparently the Free Russians got a little bit of action today, as the border guard forces in this area appear to be a little bit more active and a little bit more aggressive in their actions, considering that there is a nuclear storage facility, a nuclear weapons storage facility right behind them, and I believe if we measure this, it's actually not that far at all. Yeah, it is about 5 miles away from where the current fighting is at the moment, so it seems as though they're trying to fight a little bit harder to protect the nuclear facility and possibly buy them time. And we got to see today a little snippet of footage of the Free Russians in this area repelling a Russian border guards assault in the firefight that ensued. Here's the clip, of course, released by Svoboda Rossiya, or Free Russia, and here it is. Seeing them reloading the Bren.
Dang, these guys aren't messing around when they come in.
They are not messing around. That was the highest volume of fire they could probably lay down in a single moment. It sounds as though, because at the beginning of the clip, it did sound like there was a small amount of return fire, but it quickly got buried by the overwhelming firepower that the Free Russians put down range at that moment. So it looks like they may have actually routed the Russian border guards as soon as the firefight began, because we just didn't hear any return fire beyond the first 3 seconds. And that is a fairly successful battle right there. The firefight ended as quickly as it began, and it looks like they are able to hold their positions within the Grivoron front today, and they may be advancing on Antonovka tomorrow. But nevertheless, all of this footage that we have gotten from the border regions today is showing that the Russian border guards are wholly unprepared to deal with the massive advances that are occurring in most areas, and also the equipment that the Free Russians are moving in with. Also, on top of that, we're starting to notice a disorganized operation as small border guard detachments like the one inside the BMP-1 near Gorkovsky are being caught off guard and quickly destroyed without even an ability to be able to radio back that they have engaged Free Russian forces and try and get their force size and numbers. It appears that on top of that, near the Shebekino area, border guard forces are also once again suffering from a great decrease in efficiency or a lack of a centralized chain of command, or even, for that matter, a lack of reconnaissance and information on the Free Russian forces that they are fighting against. From what we could tell in that clip, due to the complete unawareness of the BMD unit that was holding that tree line, it appears that they certainly were not expecting that the Free Russians had advanced that far that quickly, and when they came under fire, they once again were not prepared for what was coming and ended up becoming casualties due to the Free Russian fire. We've also been hearing that not only have these border incursions been happening at a very high rate today, and not only that, increasingly producing significant casualties for the Russian border guard forces, which once again are sparsely equipped, and on top of that, very stretched out across the front lines. The density of the border guard forces is so small that within concentrated areas, like we're seeing in these advances, the Free Russians probably outnumber the border guards heavily, meaning that they have an attacker's advantage that would be highly suited. In the attack, a attacker usually looks to have a 3-to-1 advantage over the defender in numbers, meaning that for every defender, you have 3 attackers. With the concentration of forces that the Free Russians have been able to levy within these 5 fronts inside of the Kursk and Belgorod, they are probably able to get that 3-to-1 attacker's advantage that will give them the ability to rapidly advance and overtake Russian positions, and most likely continue to advance fast enough that the Russian border guards will not be able to regroup unless if they fall back drastically to an area like the outskirts of Belgrade, near the towns of Tivrovo, Maslova Pristan, or maybe even the area around Borisovka. Although, if they give up Borisovka, that means that they're also going to be giving up the nuclear weapons facility at Antonovka. There's a little bit of extra detail to go into at Antonovka, because there is a massive crux to the issue of whether the Russians would be able to evacuate the nuclear arms from this facility in time, and the answer is probably not. If we look at the road structure within this area, there is no bridge that passes from the Antonovka nuclear facility's barracks here, which we can see right in front of the facility before you are actually led into it, and the river across from it. There is a small footbridge here, but that is not going to be posing any kind of a positive benefit to the Russian forces here that may be trying to move the nuclear weapons out. If the Russians were to attempt a move of the nuclear weapons out of the Antonovka nuclear facility, they would actually have to take a pretty long truck drive south and towards the Free Russian forces, because there is no road that travels eastwards easily. If you follow this road here, it starts at the barracks and the facility, which also has a small parking lot, and you travel south, and the first chance you get to turn west is to turn west and then try and drive through probably the, actually paved road, interestingly enough, oddly enough, at Antonovka, and then try and go down the small country roads that would take you further east and into the town of Golovchino. However, the most likely route that a Russian nuclear weapons truck or a Russian nuclear weapons transport would take would most likely be to head south and then probably try and move all the way down to the 14K4 highway, where it could probably get an easier time traveling across the road, as this is an actual hard paved road instead of a lightly paved concrete road like we're seeing in the areas around Antonovka, which may not be able to support the weight of a whole truck like that. And then they would start traveling east towards Golovchino. If the Free Russian forces are able to advance like they were last time, forwards out of the area of Grivoron and towards the area of Masachevo, this may put these Russian nuclear weapons transports under direct fire and make the evacuation of the weapons impossible, meaning that the weapons will be stranded inside the base until Free Russian forces were able to access them and capture the weapons. Going off of all this, you can see that the Russians are probably crapping bricks at the moment, thinking that nuclear weapons may fall into the hands of rebel forces, or more so, liberation forces of their own citizenry. This has led the Russians to make a very interesting statement today, as Putin made another very rare interview and made a statement that Putin is ready to use nuclear weapons at any given moment. According to what he said today, Russia is prepared for nuclear war. And that means that it is, once again, another on-the-nose threat of some kind of a nuclear conflict breaking out because of what's going on inside of Ukraine and now what's going on inside of Russia. Do we believe that he'd really use nuclear weapons? I don't know. That's up to y'all, because we've never really seen an instance like this before, and this may be a serious enough one that this may be a serious statement. But nevertheless, who really knows? But it's still showing that tensions are very high, once again showing nuclear threats coming out, and we're probably going to see that something happens in the future. Not nuclear, but at least something drastic, maybe in Russia's ability to deal with the Free Russian units. Moving on out of the area of the border region and on deeper into Russia, things just got worse and worse for the Russians today. And the Russians are continuing to take higher and higher losses, and on top of that, they're also beginning to lose critical fuel production infrastructure that they desperately need to try and keep the Russian armed forces and the Russian economy running even at a puttering pace. Moving on into Ryazan, we were able to see today that the massive oil refinery that is within the confines of the city which I believe is right down here. And that is the oil refinery right here. This is the RNPK oil refinery. And I believe, Matthew, this one is run by Lukoil, if I'm correct.
So I think this one is by Rosneft. I think the other one is Lukoil, but this one is Rosneft or Rosneft or something like that.
Let's see. You know, that would be matching up with the abbreviation there, because it's like Rosneft or something like that. So that may be it. I believe this is a Rosneft oil refinery. However, it's one of the larger ones within Western Russia again, and believe it or not, the Ukrainians attacked this one and have knocked it out severely. We got the footage of the sounds of the drones flying in to attack the nuclear facility right here. And there it is.
Oh dear, most unfortunate. That looks like a Bayraktar.
Kinda does. It looks like a little itty bitty one.
And that little fella's on a mission.
Oh, and look, one of them already hit earlier. That one's just flying in to finish the job. Moving on from that clip and into our next one, we then got to see the damage that was caused during the attacks. And here's one of those clips right here. Everyone's standing around in awe that there is no Russian air defense, and the drones are making it through quite easily. Oh! They have some air defense. It sounds like AKs.
Man.
That's the sound of desperation right there. And we see the drone just casually flying on its way to its target. And oh, look, it's going down. I think, the Russians didn't get it.
Oh, damn. You know something shocking to me is that all of the Russian oil refineries, literally all 3 that were attacked, there is no proper air defense around any of them. They literally have guys running outside with AKs. I think they're the oil workers running outside with AKs and trying to basically take pot shots at the thing while it's flying in. And that never really works because they always hit, and they haven't taken out a successful drone yet.
Not a single one. That one hit right on its target. One of the refinery towers that once again possesses some very vital, very expensive, and very meticulous pieces of components that have to be produced in the West and then imported into Russia. Once again, due to sanctions, the importation of those systems are no longer possible. We also got to see another clip showing that the Ryazan oil refinery had been knocked out.
Горим.
The man said, that's our livelihood, isn't it, Bliat? Yes, Bliat, that is it. It's up in flames.
He said, I can taste the cancer, Bliat. In my lungs.
Really?
Breathing in straight
Is that graphite I taste in the air? No, Bliat, that's petroleum.
Oh, it's still his beard. But with that, I gotta say, it is insane to see that the Ukrainians launched another successful attack on the Ryazan oil refinery today, but that wasn't the only one, because they also launched an attack on a small oil facility within the town of Novoshatinsk. I'm so sorry, y'all. I can't get that right. But beyond that, this little town is kind of interesting because, believe it or not, it has a little bit of historical significance to the war in Ukraine. This was the first town that the Wagner Group took over when they were conducting their armed revolt against the Russian government. That was actually the first one. But,
Really?
yeah, but today...
Really?
Today, it made history for another reason, as the oil facility within the town caught on fire due to a Ukrainian drone attack. And we see the Russians helplessly shooting water up onto the fire, which probably would not put it out.
Man, these Russian fire brigades, they're like, they'll have decent-looking fire trucks, but it's like they really never know what they're doing.
They never know what they're doing, Matthew. That's the story of Russia. No one ever knows what they're doing in Russia. They're just given a job, and they try and figure it out as they go. But we're seeing, once again today, that oil refineries are getting attacked all over the place. They're getting knocked out. They're not going to be coming online anytime soon. And even if they are able to, they're going to be at a drastically reduced production capacity. Because of that, we're starting to believe that the amount of consumption of Russian fuel, well, fuel inside of Russia, versus the amount that Russia is able to produce the fuel is actually at a deficit as of today, and they will start to have to tap into their strategic fuel reserves to try and keep the economy and the military running, or they're going to have to prioritize the military or the economy over the other. This is something that has brought up a massive discussion today, because it seems as though the Ukrainians are taking a more grand strategic approach to the war, and they're starting to try and destroy the Russians' ability to even wage war at its very source, at the oil refineries. A lot of people have been saying that the Russians are possibly becoming threatened by these attacks, and this actually may be a war-ending strategy right here for the Ukrainians. If the Russians have no fuel, they have no way to fight. But some people are also saying that it might affect them in weeks, or they might not be affected at all. A lot of people have many different opinions about what's going on inside of Russia with the oil refineries and the border incursion. And Matthew, what are you thinking about these oil refinery attacks? And most importantly, what is everyone else thinking about them?
All right, so we asked you all, after Ukraine has knocked out 3 of Russia's major refining facilities near Moscow, will Russian oil now become threatened as a whole? And it looks like the majority, 58%, said yes, it will become threatened. 22% said probably, but it'll take a few weeks. And 12% said no, Russian oil will remain stable. And in my opinion, Ukraine is on a mission to wipe out as much of these refining facilities as they possibly can. So if they can hit more of them, they will. And I think there's nothing holding them back at this point because, like I said, there really is no air defense around these facilities to ward off these drone attacks. So I think Russian oil is threatened right now, and that is going to give the Freedom of Russia Legion an advantage because now Russia is going to have to scramble to try to get forces back to protect these facilities. And even at that, I don't think they're going to have enough forces to actually protect these things properly enough. But that's just me. But Enforcer, what say you?
They will never have the ability to protect these oil facilities because they're so far spread out, and the Russians don't have enough air defense even for the front lines in Ukraine right now. These cities will be completely defenseless well into the future. There's not even really a good early warning system that the Russians have for incoming drones because they're very hard to detect. The Ukrainians have gotten really good at detecting them, pretty much just with anti-aircraft crews driving around and listening for drones and also trying to spot them with the naked eye. That's the way the Ukrainians try and detect them, and I don't think the Russians will ever do that because if they wanted to, it goes back to mobilizing the Rosguardia. And I feel like for some reason, and I'm saying for some reason a little sarcastically, the Russians aren't big fans of trying to mobilize the Rosguardia. I think they're actually scared that the Rosguardia would revolt if they try to mobilize them and arm them, because that's the only way that they could try and deal with these incoming drones is if they mobilize the Rosguardia in a lot of these oblasts, which is the Russian National Guard, arm them and equip them a lot like the Ukrainians have with their territorial defense groups, with technicals and also spotlights where they might be able to try and spot these drones and shoot them down before they come in. That might be the only way they can really deal with this, but at the same time, I don't think they want to deal with it that way, because if they give the Rosguardia weapons, and they actually mobilize them, now the Russians have an entire contingent of another group of the Russian armed forces that may possibly revolt against them, and may have the ability now to actually cause some serious damage that the Russians would not be able to deal with, because most of the armed forces, the actual proper army, is currently tied up inside of Ukraine and fighting there. So I have a feeling this is a serious threat to the Russians' ability to wage war, and not only that, it's a situation that they probably will not be able to fix going on into the future, probably ever. But moving on from that, and a little bit further up and on into Moscow itself, we got to see a picture of T-90Ms being prepared to be sent to the front lines. The picture is a little interesting because the snow cover is thick in this picture, and from what we understand, there isn't really any snow cover left in most of Russia, except for in the very northern regions around St. Petersburg. We also understand that this picture is coming from somewhere within southern or central Russia, where there isn't really a lot of snowfall anymore, and so this picture seems to be one that was dated at a different time. However, you can see something a little bit interesting here, which is that a Russian Orthodox priest is consecrating these T-90Ms. I'm guessing that Russian Orthodox blessings don't really mean much because so many of these things have been knocked out at this point that they're about as effective as at protecting the crew as a normal T-72B or a T-72A is, or hell, even a T-55. But Another interesting thing that I'd like to talk about here while we're talking about the Russian Orthodox Church and also these T90Ms is that some people may not know this, but the Russian Orthodox, well, actually the Eastern Orthodox Church as a whole, it largely existed within Russia in what would be called the Russian Empire throughout the majority of history. And for the large part, it was a normal religious organization, a lot like the Catholic Church and so on. But later on, when the Soviet Union formed out of the Russian Civil War, the Russian Orthodox Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church largely as a whole, was completely dismantled by the Soviet government under Lenin. Stalin brought the Russian Orthodox Church back, which is really weird because a lot of y'all would hear that the Soviet Union was an atheist or an agnostic kind of a country. But Stalin actually wanted to have state religion, but run by the Soviet Union. So Stalin brought back the Russian Orthodox Church, and it was a Frankenstein compared to what it was. Back in the day, the Orthodox Church had as much power or just a little less power than the Tsar did, but under Stalin, the Russian Orthodox Church was brought back, and it became a apparatus of the Soviet state. And Stalin was the supreme religious leader of the Russian Orthodox Church. And from that point forward, the Russian Orthodox Church in particular has existed as an extension and an arm of the Russian government. That's something that a lot of people don't know, and that's also why you'll see that Putin is heavily tied into the operation and running of the Russian Orthodox Church, is because even today, in its modern form, it is heavily tied into the operation and workings of the Russian government. That's also why, and this has been slightly misled by many people here in the West, that's why you'll see that the Ukrainian government has been shutting down Russian Orthodox churches inside of Ukraine, because they pretty much operate as unofficial propaganda machines and also dissension machines for the Russian government. They don't really have a lot going for them religiously anymore, like many organizations would, like the Catholic Church or any kind of a Protestant church in the Christian world. They more so just operate as an extension of the Russian government in their attempt to try and further their ambitions, aims, and propaganda ideals around the rest of the Eastern European world and anywhere where there may be a Russian Orthodox Church. They're completely separate.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I saw this photo when you first showed it. I was thinking, what's the Russian Orthodox like priest doing out here, like blessing a tank? It's like, isn't like war and death, isn't that supposed to be something that they look down upon? Not out here like blessing like a killing machine, basically.
Yeah, you know, it does. It shows you how heavily involved the Orthodox Church is with the Russian state, that they would start consecrating vehicles of war, weapons of death, to go to the field and kill other people. You know, regardless whether those people are enemies of Russia or not, it shows you how tied in the church is to the state, which is something that no one knows about. No one knows about that in the Western world. It's something that's been greatly misled because there's a huge propaganda thing out there that the Ukrainians are trying to destroy Christianity, which is actually a weird propaganda trope. But the reality is that they're shutting down Russian Orthodox churches and leaving everything else alone, because the Russian Orthodox Church is an extension of the Russian government operating inside of Ukraine. That's how it actually works. You can go back and look at the detailed history of that if you want, but that's kind of the whole synopsis in a nutshell. But moving on from that and on into Moscow, we also have an additional clip of something that's showing that while they're trying to make you believe that T90Ms are a common thing that they're bringing to the front lines these days, the more so commercial or civil side of things is completely backwards. We're about to look at a brand new Lada that's been unveiled to the public, and I'm going to call this thing Lada Bonya Edition, because this thing is straight up like a wartime version of a Lada. This thing is apparently the Lada Vesta 2924, and we're actually going to go pull up the Lada website.
Oh man, it's a car from the future. It's a Vesta 2924, man. This is like a look into our great future.
This is hundreds of years into the future, Matthew. The Western mind simply cannot comprehend such a vehicle. But really quickly, I'm trying to see if we can, let's see here. Trying to see if we can get this website translated into English, but let's see here. This thing is the Vesta. So we want to find the Vesta. And let's see, this thing is the Vesta 2924. It's not even on their website, it seems. But here is the Lada website, if y'all are ever interested. So Here it is, right here. I'm not going to accept cookies from a Russian website, so we're not going to click that. But you can see here that they have a whole wide variety of vehicles for sale. They have the Largus, which is the Squid Games van for Russia.
The Largus. And why does it say maximum benefit? Like, what is this, an insurance policy or a car?
And check up a vehicle passport. Your vehicle has a passport. Maintenance calls.
I want the maintenance calls when these bad boys are.
I wonder. I'm curious. Let's see here.
Oh, then you got to configure the whole car before you can figure out the maintenance on it?
We're not doing that. We're not doing that. Hell no. So let's see here. What else do they have? They have the Kormerchiski, which is some kind of an ugly, weird-looking kind of like pickup thing. They tried to cover up how dog ugly this one is by calling it a Neva Legend. The only thing legendary about this thing is how it turns the women away. It's as bad as going on a date and it going poorly. That's what it would look like right there, just dog ugly and unlovable. But we also got to see the Sportimi. It's literally called like Sporty something because this right here says Sport at the front of the name. This thing is
It's like they tried to model these the bottom ones, like the Granta Sport. It's like they modeled that after like maybe a Subaru or something because it looks familiar, but also at the same time it looks kind of jank.
They look bad. The Neva Legend is god awful.
Oh.
The Neva Travel is not that bad looking. Kind of looks like a Toyota 4Runner ripoff a little bit.
Oh, hell no, man, nowhere close. Like not even remotely.
Well, I mean, I thought it kind of. I'm trying to at least salvage it a little bit so that way we can put the massive letdown on everyone in a minute. But they also had the Vesta, which is I believe the one we're about to see. It's one of these Vestas, I'm assuming. And then they have the Granta, which is god ugly, and then they have the Sve Modeli, which is just all of them put together in one, like, it's every model pretty much is what that means. But I got to take you all to the brand new Lada that they unveiled today that a Russian was able to look at. It's the Lada Vesta 2924, and he was able to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and show all the cool quirks and features that these brand new Ladas have right off of the assembly line. So allow me to join y'all in looking at a brand new Soviet car. Look, it's a nice car. I don't care if there's no in stereo. I'll install it myself. There are no speakers. Fine, I'll do it myself. I'll buy cheap ones. Why overpay for them? Seat heating is also not necessary. I will not drive it in winter. No airbags, I don't care. Look how cool it is. Oh man, it doesn't open. Mirror? What's the point of having a mirror? So there's no pop-down mirror up there. I have it here and that's it. I don't think there's a light. Whatever. What's the point? Nothing to see at night. So what if there's no third head restraint, no parking sensors, no rear view camera? So what? The Lada is small. It's easy to see everything. Huh, well, I'd have
Man, was this guy being sarcastic during the whole video? As I saw this earlier and I covered it in the short war video. I couldn't tell if he was being sarcastic or was he actually trying to cope with the poor car.
I think he's being sarcastic because there's no way that he's looking at all of this as a big plus.
Yeah, it can't be, man. Because like you got to have speakers in the car, and also, what's up with that center console and the dash? Is that thing empty?
Yeah, it's just there's nothing there. Look at that. It's just empty crevices.
Nothing.
Look at that.
Like, what does that go right to the engine bay or something?
Dude, you can stick your hand in there and feel the heat of the engine. Or, you know, if anything goes wrong with the engine, you can just stick your hand into the holes of the abyss and start fixing the engine with your hand as you're driving. This is a lawnmower engine in the thing after all. But, oh my lord.
It's a hand here, Bliat. Just put your whole hand on the engine block.
It's like a hot plate in there. You like cook up a hot pocket in that thing. And I like how there's no speakers or anything on the door. Look how plastic that door is. Like, there's nothing nice about the door. It's just a straight up hard plastic cover they put over it.
It's like Tupperware plastic.
Yeah, terrible stuff. No features. Look at that. They have emergency lights and a lock button, I think that is. No other features on any of the other buttons. And then on top of that, it looks like you have like 3 major dials here. One possibly runs the air conditioner, at least the temperature. One of them also controls the fan speed, and this one looks like it controls the headlights. That's it.
Подушек нет, ну и в принципе на четырке тоже не было, и пофигу.
No airbags, apparently, so if you get in a crash, best of luck.
Блин, что-то не открывается. Зеркало.
No mirror on the back, on the sun visor, so if you flip it down to open up the mirror, good luck, there just isn't one.
Нафиг оно здесь нужно? Вот здесь есть и хватит. Что-то подсветки что ли нету?
The glove box looks like it was made by Tupperware as well, because it is entirely plastic and appears to have abandoned all hope.
Нафиг она нужна? Что там ночью смотреть, разглядывать? Подумаешь, третьего подголовника нет.
The head restraints look like they were made to torture prisoners and get confessions out of them.
Подголовника нет.
The rear brake lights appear to be a rip-off of some kind of like a Toyota or something.
Нет, камера задняя.
No backup camera, but you can clearly see the holes where there probably would have been one. It's just that they didn't install them, and that's that. It's a Lada. What can you say?
I like how they wrote Lada across the back like it was a Volvo.
Yeah, and they didn't even write it in Russian. Did you notice that? They put it in English.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, why'd they do that?
Because they're trying to look all nice and Western because they know it's luxurious, but the Russians don't want to admit that. How cheap, though. And this thing, by the way, y'all, is $16,000 brand new, approximately. Somewhere around there. So it's a fairly expensive car to be such a piece of crap like that. But we're going to be moving on from that, because that's enough of the Lada. Enough of the Lada. We've had enough of it. It's tortured us too much. But we're going to be moving on into the West, because while the Russians are desperately looking to try and figure out a way to sell a car that has no features rather than the engine and the steering wheel, it appears that the British have come out with a old brand new bussin' on God feature for their destroyers, and also their warships at sea. It's a brand new kind of a laser weapon called the Dragonfire, which sounds cool as hell, and what it does is cool as hell. Here's the clip. We can see them turning it on, and there it goes firing up into the sky. And it's a laser weapon. It is literally just a laser.
It's like a phaser.
Pretty much. There it is right there. So it looks like it's about to like scan your teeth, like give your teeth an x-ray, but it actually obliterates things that fly.
I'm impressed with the UK. They have some pretty interesting like weaponry coming out. Like they had that drone that they chained down to the ground and was letting it fly around. You remember that one?
Yeah, what was it? The Marlet, I believe?
Yeah, it was something. They had it chained down and they were testing it and banging it around and stuff.
Well, I think that was the Jackal, but it had Marlets inside of it. But I remember that was a really cool little drone. And the British are really working on making some incredible weapons tech. They don't get a lot of credit because in the past, through the Cold War, the British usually let a lot of their companies die, like Enfield, a famous firearms company, ended up dying by the later part of the 20th century, along with English Electric, which made some incredible aircraft in the Cold War, and a couple of others. But beyond that, it does look like they're making a resurgence, and they're starting to really make some incredibly innovative and also some incredibly efficient or effective weapon systems, such as that one. It's about 10 pounds to fire that thing at a target and destroy it, meaning they could destroy incoming drones, which they showed it being used against, and it could also destroy anything else that may be flying towards the vessel or towards the ground target, wherever it may be. But still, that is incredibly wild to see, and great to know the British are still working on military innovations that will be giving the West an upper hand against the Russians and the Chinese. At the exact same time, now that Sweden has joined NATO, and Matthew, I gotta say, we have so many people that have been watching this channel for quite a while, and I bet that everyone will be able to say that I called this. Because remember, Matthew, when I was talking about Sweden getting into NATO, and I was talking about the whole Cold War thing, about how they weren't in NATO, well, they weren't in NATO, but if the Cold War had gone hot, they probably would have been brought into NATO pretty much immediately because of the Gotland Island and the kind of strategic importance there is to this island, especially if it was to fall into Russian hands in some kind of a rapid invasion of the island, and how serious of a hindrance that would be. Yeah, how serious of a hindrance that would be and everything to NATO. Sweden is already demanding that NATO begins to reinforce the Gotland Island and build a major defensive network on it to try and protect NATO from a possible capture of the island by the Russians. Someone put a coin in the enforcer is right jar, because this is literally what I was talking about a while ago. This is exactly what Sweden was actually concerned about in the Cold War as well. The Gotland Island is the most strategically important piece of real estate that the Swedes own. To try and summarize it very easily, This thing is an island in the middle of the Baltic Sea and can practically fire, if the Russians captured it, anti-ship weapons and anti-air weapons at practically anything all the way from the Swedish coast and all the way to the Baltic coast. Meaning that if the Russians ever captured this island in a full-on war, this would be a severe death blow to really all NATO forces that are further up inside the Baltic Sea in Finland and also the Baltic states as well, and may lead them to be crushed, possibly, because they would be completely cut off from any supplies rather than the ones that would travel over land routes from Norway and Sweden into Finland, or from Poland and up into the Baltics, which may be possibly cut off by the Suwalki Gap if that, for some reason, was captured in a Russian fast attack. That means we called it on this channel. And if you like that, if you respect that, I don't mean to plug this or nothing, but make sure to subscribe. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, if you like that, we got that right, and we got that right in the jaw again, make sure to subscribe, because usually we call stuff before it even happens. Like, we called the whole thing going on in Haiti before it happened weeks ago. But we don't really talk about that much on the channel, because Haiti's not our, like, subject. But moving on from that, reading off what Nexta said today, just to put this out there, Sweden is going to ask NATO to strengthen the defense of Gotland Island in the Black Sea. This was reported by the Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson to the Financial Times. It is a question of increasing the military contingent on the island and possible deployment of submarines there as well. Strengthening the defense of Gotland will be one of the first issues on the agenda of discussions with Sweden's NATO partners. Gotland is the largest island in the Baltic, 330 kilometers from Kaliningrad. The island is of great strategic importance, and its location, it makes it easy to control both air and sea traffic in the southern Baltic Sea. We got it literally dead on the nail. That's exactly what Nexta and the Financial Times said, and it's also what the Swedes say. Boomya, booyah, baby. Boomya, booyah, whatever the hell you want to say. We got it. It's dead on the nail. That is exactly what we were talking about. And it looks like Sweden is already going to be looking at beefing up Gotland Island, so that way if anything happens in the future, they will be ready, and the Russians will not be ready for what they'll be going up against on Gotland Island. Also, by the way, if y'all have never looked at Gotland Island, it's actually a pretty cool place. This is what Gotland Island looks like.
That's pretty scenic looking. I can only imagine there's only like a few roads in this place to actually go down because it's so small, but it looks pretty nice.
Yeah, and also one thing I believe, if I remember correct, to share with y'all a cool little fact, or it's actually, I think it's this island down here, but this island and I believe the Gotland Island are bringing back the European bison, which practically went extinct in the 20th and late 18th centuries, but they're trying to bring it back by grafting it with the American bison and a couple of cattle. They're planning on actually repopulating the European bison and bringing them back throughout most of Europe. And the Gotland Island, as well as the Bornholm Island, are a large part of that conservation and repopulation effort, which is actually a really cool fun fact about the island, if y'all ever want to tell anyone about the Gotland Islands, beyond it being strategically important. But enough of a small rabbit hole. I mean, that is just a small rabbit hole to tell someone at a cocktail party. We've got to move on into Ukraine, because there is a lot of news to cover there, both in the location unknowns, the front lines, and everything else that happened today, because while Russia is falling apart, the war in Ukraine is still going on, and it is going on at a pretty fast and rapid pace, and we're seeing that it's not really slowing down anytime soon, even with the Russians dealing with a full-on invasion of their own country from the Ukrainian border. Before we get into that, however, a lot of people have been talking about the Lukoil president dying without any explanation, which kind of crosses into the oil refinery talk that we were having just a moment ago. A lot of people believe that Putin may have killed him. Some people are saying that he may have not killed him, and it was just a blood clot, like Alexei Navalny suffered inside a prison. But many people have had many different opinions on this. Matthew, what are you thinking about it?
All right, so we asked you all, is it a Russian hit after we learned this morning that the Russian Lukoil vice president died without any explanation given whatsoever, and it looks like 69%. Nice. Said he was assassinated by Putin, and 16% said, it seems very odd, but maybe, and only 4% said he died simply of natural causes. And in my opinion, the mere fact that Lukoil would not give a statement as to how the vice president actually died, that pretty much gave it all away. That guy found a window, a very high one, and fell out of it. Something like that happened. It was very suspicious. And considering the fact that these oil facilities are being attacked right now, and that is the industry in Russia that is currently being threatened, now we see the vice president of one of the biggest oil companies in Russia suddenly die out of nowhere. Now that rings out foul play to me. And I'm not sure exactly why that specific guy was targeted, but to me, it does look like an assassination. But Enforcer, what say you?
My man died. He was thrown out of a window. I would have to say,
40 feet at least.
Man, bro, that's valid. That's valid on God. I would have to say that he was thrown out of a window and assassinated, because very rarely do oligarchs die natural deaths inside of Russia, and it sounds like he didn't die a natural death from what I can hear. So I would have to assume he is certainly been assassinated by the Russian government. No doubt about it in my mind. But moving on from that, it's time for us to start getting on into that Ukrainian news. And they've been doing really good today, by the way. There's actually a whole bunch of interesting stuff that's been going on through the front. But before we get into all of that, I want to make sure that we can address a couple of questions that you all have had in the chat, because you all have had some really interesting ones tonight, and we always want to get to talk to you all for just a second. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so our first question of the night goes to Red Cover Rick. And thank you very much for that $150 support. Extremely generous and the largest super chat of the night. And like we always say, that does help keep us running, and we appreciate it very much. And he says, how are your blankets? He says, our aid package of 100 blankets sent, and email for pics. And also, you are the viewer, I believe, that sent us those blankets about, I think, 6 months to a year ago or so, somewhere around that time frame, and we have loved them very much. And also, thank you very much for sending them as well, because we still have them. And also, I'm glad to hear that you've sent an aid package of 100 to Ukraine, because I'm sure they are very desperately needed indeed. And also, if you want to email us to send those pics to us, you can do so on our YouTube page here. If you go to our About page, there's an email address there, and you can shoot it over to us, or you can DM us on Twitter as well. But thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you for the support as well. And it is cool to hear that you're back. Welcome back, and thank you for the massive support. We love the blankets. They are incredibly nice. They're incredibly warm, and we enjoy them greatly here. And it is great to hear that you sent 100 blankets in an aid package to Ukraine, because that is going to be helping a lot of Ukrainian citizens to keep warm that may have been moved out of their homes or may have their heating knocked out by Russian attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. That is incredible to hear, Red Cover Rick, that you were able to help them out like that. And also, if you want to send us those pics, much like Matthew said, you can reach out to us on Twitter and DM us there, or you can do it on Patreon as well, because we do have a Patreon, which helps to support the channel. But I wouldn't recommend that if you just want to send a picture, because you have to pay to be a member of the Patreon and be able to send messages there. I would highly recommend doing the Twitter instead, because then you'll be able to just DM us directly without having to pay a cent. At least from what I know, Matthew, if I'm correct.
I believe you're correct. Or you can just email it to us. That's another way.
Yeah, or you can email it to our business email, and we'll take a look at it there. But still, thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Red Cover Rick, and thank you for being the one who is sending out those red covers, and your name is Rick. A true channel legend. Been here for a very long time, and we still greatly appreciate those blankets that you sent us so long ago. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Panama Floyd, a longtime channel legend who throws in a $20 donation. He says, the RF border guard units never expected the invaded to, quote-unquote, return the favor and take a question from the chat, y'all.
And thank you so much, y'all, to Panama Floyd. Two chairs. And thank you once again for being our Panama Floyd. You are a channel legend and an absolute pro. And I got to thank you once again for the support. But the border guard units probably never did expect a massive incursion. And that's something that border guard units really aren't structured for. Even the Ukrainian border guards are not structured to deal with a full-on invasion. They're later reorganized into that. If the invasion continues on for a while, the Ukrainian border guards are now a frontline fighting force, and not only that, are a combat force along the Ukrainian border. But the Russian border guards have probably been taken completely off guard and are not even restructured effectively to have communication amongst different border posts and border guard units to try and deal with this advance that is currently happening at the moment. I would have to say that you're probably dead on the nail with that analysis. And so I would bet you they never really did expect this to happen, especially on the scale. Because even in the past, when the border raids happened, it wasn't anything that they couldn't deal with. It was, about like 100 guys and a couple of Humvees and maybe an MRAP, and they would drive around a little bit inside of Russia, maybe overrun one border guard post. They probably never expected that there would be a 5-front push happening in Kursk and Belgorod at the same time, and this has probably completely overwhelmed the border guard's response and they're probably trying to figure out how to fall back and regroup, which will lead to the freedom of Russia, the Free Russian forces being able to gain even more ground. But with that, I have to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I gotta thank you, Panama Floyd, for being a long-time channel legend and an old guard of the channel as well. You have been here for a long time, over 2 years now. And I gotta thank you once again for still enjoying this channel and helping us to keep this thing running and supporting it, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, I hope that did address that quite well indeed. And with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the frontline news itself.
And the last one is going to go to Neil Vizanon, who's also a longtime channel legend who throws in a 20 as well. He says, does the Russian National Guard include former PMC guys? And what's going to happen when they meet the rebels? And is it more recruits against Putin? Question mark, with an extra big smiley face. And he says, also, get a chat question as well.
And thank you so much for the support, Neil Vizanon. And yes, the Russian Rosguardia does include former PMCs like the Wagner PMC. Most of the Wagner PMC was either integrated, well, most of it was actually spread out amongst the Rosguardia, and then a small part of it was actually integrated directly as the Wagner unit into the Rosguardia as a unit of Rosguardia, or the Russian National Guard. So to answer that, yes, there is a lot of former Wagner PMCs that are sprinkled throughout the Rosguardia. What would happen if they met the rebels is that they may actually join them, or they may fight against them, because while they don't like the Russian government, they may not like the Free Russians either, so they may feel like they're still compelled to fight against them, although I'm kind of doubting that a little bit. But nevertheless, if I had to give a good answer on that, and go with my gut instinct, something tells me they probably would maybe join the Free Russians, because the way Prigozhin was done was terrible. I mean, he really was done dirty by the Russian government. They said, put down your arms, everything's going to be good, we'll, just, let everything be fine, we won't do anything to you, and then they all put down their arms, and then they ended up killing him a little while later by shooting down his jet with Dmitry Yukin in it with him. And so I would have to say, without a shadow of a doubt, they probably would most likely join the Free Russians if they went down there and tried to fight against them. But that's even if the Russians try and mobilize the Rosguardia. I have a feeling that the Russians are very concerned about something like that happening, and they're probably going to try to not mobilize the Rosguardia, because it could end up actually turning against them. The Rosguardia could defect and end up joining the Free Russians and start fighting alongside them, growing the manpower of the Free Russians pretty much by the Russians' own design. So I would have to say it's a little unlikely that the Russians will ever mobilize the Rosguardia, and I have a feeling that that's the way it would go. But really quickly, to make sure to get back to your question, Neil, and answer the rest of it, because the YouTube little chat thing's being a little funny. And also, I had to make sure I addressed that well and completely. Thank you so much once again for support, Neil, and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will make sure to get a live chat question.
All right, and the live chat question is going to go to Rats, who says, if the Freedom of Russia Legion pushes far enough, do you think Putin will use a tactical nuke on Russian land?
It's possible, although I have a feeling it's probably unlikely, especially if the Free Russians are able to overrun the Antonovka nuclear weapons depot and take nuclear weapons inside. I highly doubt that the Russians would actually attempt to try and nuke the Free Russians, because who's to say that one of those nukes doesn't somehow make its way into a major Russian city and end up detonating there, killing a large amount of Russians? Or who's to say that the Free Russians don't hold Russia hostage with the nuclear weapons that they may capture? That is a fairly reasonable hypothetical scenario at the moment. However, there's an equal chance that the Russians could end up nuking the Free Russians and trying to justify it as an invasion of their sovereign territory, and therefore they had to defend the Russian people. I have a feeling that the chances of them using a nuclear weapon on their own territory is always higher than them using it on the Ukrainians or using it on the Western world, because no one will really be able to react all too much to what's happening inside of Russian borders. Of course, everyone would look at it in disdain. That is not out of the question, but there's not really a lot that people could do to actually react. If a nuke was used on Ukraine, I'm sure the entire world would be jumping to Ukraine's aid and joining the war against Russia. But if the Russians use a nuke on their own people, that's a much more unlikely scenario, in my opinion, if the whole world was to try and jump up and fight the Russians for nuking their own country. I have a feeling that that would be a lot less likely. So in a sense. What I'm trying to say here in a very roundabout way is that the Russians using tactical nuclear weapons on their own soil is probably very likely compared to using it on anyone else. So the answer to that would be if they would use nuclear weapons. The actual final answer would be possibly, but it's still not highly likely because, you know, we're still dealing with marginal percentages of usage there. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I say the best I can. And thank you once again for supporting Neil Vizinot and helping this channel to keep on running. And moving on out of that question segment and into our next one within the area of our location unknowns, it's time to go over the Russian casualty report, and it's been fairly significant tonight. Ooh!
Oh, 8 Bobcats in a day. Like Prince said on the right, this is huge and scary. I'm telling you.
And did Ukrainian you lose any during this period? And wow! But still, beyond that, 8 Bobcat skid steers were destroyed. A very good day. A very good number. Not only that, 980 Russian troops were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours. On top of that, they also lost 20 armored personnel carriers, 62 supply trucks, which was a whopper, 5 main battle tanks, 32 artillery pieces, 22 drones, 1 MLRS, 1 cruise missile, and 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems. Today was a very good day for the Ukrainian defenders, and once again showing that they are inflicting quite a high amount of losses on the Russians now as a daily occurrence. And we assume that the Russians are still, suffering, still not really making any ground, and they're not doing well at all. Moving on to the northeastern area, towards the area of Makiivka, we got to see that a Ukrainian BMP-2 was just rolling on forward to the front lines. It's another day in Ukraine. Let's see how it went for him. You can see them here driving down the street, kind of casually. Looks like we got a little bit of dust cover, but it's okay. We're just going to keep going. Overall, the countryside is really beautiful, though. So what we saw, while I have another voice crack, because my voice is just at its limit these days, what we saw was a Lancet drone try and blow up this Ukrainian BMP, and it appears that it hit the lower front glacis of the BMP, and the angle was so steep that it ended up just kind of ricocheting down to the ground and exploding under the BMP and not really causing any damage. So they just kept on rolling. Let's watch that again and make sure. Let's see. Yep, it looks like it actually just got ricocheted straight down on the ground and blew up with most of its force going into the dirt instead of the BMP. So this thing just ended up getting out of it A-okay. So they're good. That's it. So with that, we're moving on from that clip. That was the only one we got in the Northeast. We're now moving down to Severodonetsk, where we got to see that the Russians are running their election under some armed supervision. The way democracy is intended.
Oh, look at that. They got a goon in the corner.
Yeah, if you vote for anyone rather than Putin, this guy just caps you. So vote for Putin.
Man, it's crazy. He's like literally staring down at her too, holding the gun. Like, that's not intimidating at all.
Yeah, this isn't intimidating. And this lady today said, I'll vote for Putin. With no duress whatsoever.
He said, it's such a pleasure to vote for Putin. I love to come down here and vote for Putin. Good day to you, sir, a thug in the corner. Please let me live. Can I please walk out safely?
Please don't execute me. I love the supreme leader, Stalin. I mean Putin. But moving on from that, and this pretty sad little picture here, because it's funny to think about this guy literally just menacing people in the corner to vote a certain way. That is still messed up as hell, that this is what they call voting in Russia, is an armed gunman watching you and pretty much making sure that you feel compelled to vote the right way, and probably the reason why the vote's always heavily skewed in Putin's favor. This is really insane when you think about it, but this is what Russia is. That's what Russia really turns into, is this kind of an armed regime. It's no lie. There it is right there for you to see. But moving on from that and out of Severodonetsk, it's time for us to move on down towards Bakhmut and Klishchiivka today, where we got to see the Russians trying to hide from a drone, but not doing it well. Wow, okay, they are hitting the absolute bop of music, and we can see the Russians hiding inside this destroyed house, and now they're not. This one looks like he may have made it out, and it looks like he did. Look at, why in the world is he tiptoeing, man? Look at this. tiptoeing in my Jordans, tiptoeing.
He really is. He's high stepping.
Man, look at that, man. He even dusted off his J's right here. Look at that. He's like, are you okay? Wait a minute, let me dust on my J's. Are you okay in there? Is anyone alive? No? I'm going to breathe in the smoke. Never mind. I don't feel like it. Let me look back. Whoo, wait, that smoke is something else. Let me go see if everyone's else is blasted. Look at this guy. Oh, dude, look at this guy coming out of the outhouse like Shrek. Look at him. Watch. Look, over here. You see over here in the right corner? Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. He's like, that's
what the hell happened to my swamp?
Dude, this guy came out and said, dude, it literally scared the shit out of me. I've never had the crap like that in the front lines yet. He's like, wow, how's everyone doing out here? And this guy, he's like, yep, they're all dead. I would get back in the shitter.
Oh, no, he's going back onto the shitter with them.
Uh-oh, they're both going. Uh-oh. Whoa, watch out. Hey,
whoa,
look, an
Jack.
eagle.
Whoa.
Look, an eagle.
Oh, an eagle.
Okay, now here comes Matthew. Hey, that's sleeping like an eagle. No, it's not. It's just it's just calm down. It's an eagle. But moving on from that and into our next clip near Kurtamivka, we also got to see a brutal reality. I'm going to show this to y'all. This isn't anything that I can joke about too much because these Russians attempted to surrender, and the other Russian units in the area thought that surrendering was treason and decided to pretty much take matters into their own hands and not let these guys surrender. We can see a couple of Russians down here. And we see the drone's about to drop the instructions to surrender to him right there. The Russians grab it, and they wave around the piece of paper showing that they've surrendered. And we now see them trying to climb out of this crater here and start following the drone so that way they can go and surrender. And there they are, not that much farther from the crater. The crater was right there. And the Russians had ended up gunning them down in the fields, and they never were able to surrender. See another Russian soldier here running around the trench. And it appears that now the position is coming under fire. It is a really sad thing when you think about it. The Russians are a very cruel group of people. You see the Russians still moving around the trench over there. Their dead compatriots that attempted to surrender still sitting in the fields. It's a brutal world to be a Russian soldier because you're kind of screwed either way. You're screwed if you go into the war because the Ukrainians are probably going to end up getting you anyways. And if you attempt to surrender, there's still a pretty good chance that your own soldiers could end up executing you as soon as you attempt to try. It gives you a little bit of sympathy for their position because a lot of these guys don't want to be there. They are conscripts, but still at the same time, it is a war. They are invading Ukraine, whether they want to be there or not. And you pretty much have to still root on the destruction of Russian forces as a whole, because the quicker they are destroyed, the quicker this war will end. Although there is still that unfortunate reality in the background, like we saw right there. Moving on from that and down the front towards Avdiivka, which once again the front line's holding stable here, we got to see a group of Russians getting hit. Look at them. They're running. And the Ukrainian artillery is gunning.
And this is near Avdiivka, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, this is near Avdiivka. And here, and it looks like they
get... Oh my god.
Good googly moogly.
And they peppered them.
Dude,
they peppered them and then seasoned them.
Man, they were salt, peppering, and seasoned them. But moving on from that and into our next clip, further south near Vodyane, we also got to see a Russian T-80BV getting blown up on film. But that was removed, sadly, so we'll never get to see that clip. Moving on out of the Avdiivka area and down towards Krasnoarivka, we got to hear that the 3rd Brigade, the 3rd Azov Brigade, apparently obliterated an entire group of Russians. United 24 showed the clip right here. There goes the 3rd Brigade.
смотри, там двери, сразу бери.
And what unit do y'all think is better in frontline operations? The Fighting 93rd or the 3rd Brigade? I'm really interested in what y'all think from what we've shown on this channel. You see one bullet hitting really close to this 3rd Brigade soldier right here, and another one hitting a brick right over there.
And also, there might be some gruesome in this video, from what I'm told.
Gruesome? I don't think so. I think we had to be good.
Як обстановка хуёвая.
Давай, держаться, чужой. Работайте, не подпускайте, пацаны, мочите, не подпускайте, все хотите, все, что вокруг вас, мочите их нахуй, они съебутся, мочите, не подпускайте к себе, молодцы, давай держаться.
Він типа їх так это мотивирует, да, як понял?
Dude, the Ukrainians are listening to the Russian radio, and the commander's just like, kill them. And this guy's like, wait a minute, this is how they're motivated?
The Ukrainians are just casually, like, roasting them on the radio, like, is this how they really get themselves to come and kill us, bliat?
Dude, the Russian commander's on the radio going, beat their ass, go over there and beat their ass. And then these guys are like, wait a minute, this is how they, like, hype themselves up? They're just sitting in the house like, this is jacked up.
Він їм чисто не інфу доносить, знаєш, а чисто
Man, they're shocked by this whole thing.
Работаем, сейчас туда прилет был, наблюдал прилет, чужой.
Oh my god, dude, did you hear the Ukrainian go? Because what just happened is that the commander said, yeah, did you see that incoming strike, you know, that the Russians fired? He's like, did you see it? Did it hit them? And then the Russians called over the radio, nah, it hit us. Then we got wounded. Oh my god, they said it came into the building where we're located.
Man, he turned around and looked like, are you hearing this?
Oh my god, look, even the Ukrainian said he asked for an incoming strike, but that's him who got it. Oh my god.
Man.
Dude, imagine calling in fire support like a block or two in front of you, and the shell literally flies straight through the window of the house and it blows up half the guys there. Dude, clown world.
The Russians are like, the Russians are the best, like, morale support for the Ukrainians they could ever have. Like, forget all, like, the extra stuff. Like, the Russians are doing the morale boosting themselves.
Dude, the Ukrainians are like, you know, let's move 3rd squad over here onto the other side of the street, have them advance. 2nd squad will provide supporting fire over onto the left side of the street. That kind of stuff. You know, that's how they're going. They're like, come on, we're defending our country. And then meanwhile, on the Russian radio, they're going, kill them. Can we get some fire support? Did it hit? It killed us. They're like, damn. They're like,
Ну в дом пидора, понял?
Dude, the Russians on the radio were like the Karelians were hits. Oh my god.
Damn.
Keep your eyes peeled.
Keep your eyes peeled. Dude,
them.
they're dead.
Oh my
It's
god.
like, damn, he's telling, like, dead guys, like, keep your eyes peeled, guys. Like, watch out for incoming bombs. Like, dude, they're gone.
Oh my god. We can't show the rest of the clip for reasons, because it does get a little graphic near the end. It shows some wounded. But that is giving you all a little bit of a picture of how the command level of both sides is, because you see the Ukrainians operate. You all know how they operate and what they say and how organized they are and how well trained. Meanwhile, on the Russian radios, it sounds like a Discord call on, like, Helldivers or something, where they're just going, kill them, get them, kill them. It's like, dang, it's like, can y'all come up with any strategy, like, any kind of a plan? There is no plan, and they can't even call in the artillery accurately either, because they ended up getting their own guys. But moving on from Starl,
you know the other Russians that were in that area are thinking, we're done. Like, there's no way this is going to go in our favor. Like, we literally just, like, fragged our own guys basically with that bomb, so it's done.
Oh my lord, dude! Imagine being those Ukrainians, literally listening to the other guys just a few blocks away from you on the radio and listening to the absolute clown show that you're going up against. That's got to be a huge confidence booster, knowing how well off you are compared to those guys.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. But moving on from the area of Krasnoyarivka, and a little bit further on down, we got to see another big morale booster in the area of Robotny, where we got to see a Russian failed assault occur today. So here's the clip. There's the Russian column. There's the Russian tank. Oh, it got blown up already.
Ну что, обходи, пускай обходят, нахуй. На бэхе пусть выходят, пусть танк обходят. Запускайся, родненький.
Oh, here comes a BMP-3. Wow, that's actually really rare.
Ну пусть выйдут, пусть обходят.
Oh, there's another one? What unit is this? Wow, I've never seen this many BMP-3s in one place.
Ёбаный в рот, нахуй. Да. Все, родненький, правильно, правильно.
Two group! And there they go, the legends were true. Two group!
Да. Умницы. Хорош, блядь.
Now they're crawling over a trench.
Хорош, блядь. Второй, не затупи. Пидоры обкладывают, гандоны ебаные. Накидывай, Груш, накидывай, блядь. Все, работает. Умницы.
Oh, I think they're winning another BMP. Nope, they're still there. It was just a very close hit. Now we see one BMP going off-road. It looks like the engine had a little bit too much of that, so it just started blowing up at the back. Wait a minute. Can anyone explain to me what they just did? Do you see that, Matthew? They were driving down the road. There's no obstructions on the road that we can see here on film. So they veered hard. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. There was actually a strip of mines right there. So it looks like for one of the first times ever, the Russians actually saw the mines. I didn't see that the first time. Two group! They're still on their way to Robotny.
Какой дальше? Подожди, до тачки надо, блядь. О, хуярит надо. Умница! Сука, первая рота, работай, блядь.
Oh, we can see the BMP-3 firing as they're continuing to move forward.
Ну, что такое, что встал? Направо. Да, давай.
We see the BMP continuing to fire.
Умница, блядь, мужчины, сука! Рексы, умницы!
And it looks like they made it almost up to Robotny. They're right on the very edge of it.
Витя, работай, разбирай, пидор.
And someone is coughing with a voice changer over them. They're going, that's just to listen to that.
They got like tuberculosis.
Dude, with the voice changer on, this sounds terrible. The Terminator is hacking up. The Terminator is hacking up some phlegm in the background.
Что-то пытается он с ангаров. Хорошо. Все, пошел десант пошел.
And who are these guys talking?
I have no idea, but the other guy is still hacking up lungs. Whoa, the 9mm will blow out the lung! And there goes some of the Russians dismounting. I like how the BMP is rolling away as these guys are trying to jump out, kind of slowing the whole thing down. And it looks like one of the BMP-3s is actually leaving.
This guy's going off in the background. This guy's chaotic as hell that's talking right now. Like, he is wild. There he is.
молодец, 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 правильно, 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 двигайся.
Уводи мага родной, уводи,
дай
блядь,
прямо,
уводи.
дай прямо, дай прямо.
Dude, why in the world is this guy like convulsing? He's like flipping in front of the screen every once in a while. Look at this.
Молодец, правильно, 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 двигайся.
Уводи мага родной, уводи, блядь,
That
уводи.
dude is fighting the max.
Dude, he's tweaking. Look at
Блин, да. Уводи мага, уводи родной, уводи, блядь, уводи.
That dude's killing me.
Dude, he's bobbing like one of those little bird toys you get as a kid that like dips into the water and drinks it. Look at him, there he goes again. Oh my god.
Oh my god, man, I can't take it.
Oh my
Get it
lord.
off the screen, I can't take it.
I can't take this anymore. Will you tell me the nuclear codes? Will you tell them to me now? But
Good
anyway,
lord.
anyways, that's the end of that clip. What a trip. What a trip. But we got to see the Russians lost a tank. They didn't lose their BMP-3s, oddly enough. But we did get to hear someone coughing up their lungs, and we also got to see one guy who was absolutely coked. But moving on from that and into the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, we got to see the Ukrainian air defense at work. And here's the clip. While Anti-Putin's still in the background. They said war is in the video game.
Є пуск з ПЗРК біля. Є збиття!
Oh, they got it!
Oh. That's a like movie laugh.
Yeah.
Є збиття, впало десь близько 1,5-2 кілометра.
Was he on a loudspeaker?
We got it!
Hey, man, he was announcing to the world too. It sounded like he was on one of those like cheap loudspeakers yelling out to a crowd when he said that last line. Go back a little bit.
This is Hot Dog 97. We got him down. We got him down. Let's go back.
Є збиття, впало десь близько 1,5-2
Yeah, why does it sound like he's on a megaphone there? He's like,
Yeah.
he's just announcing it to the cattle out in the field. He's like, we got him. We got another one down. But hey, I mean, he's got a reason to celebrate. They shot down a Shahed with a 50 caliber machine gun. Pretty impressive stuff. And I gotta say, that laugh was something that will go down in legend. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip. After people are saying, man, the enforcer's gone off the deep end. Oh no, you haven't seen anything yet. But moving on from the Dnipropetrovsk area, it's time for us to get up to Kyiv and cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky that came out today on the 13th of March, day 749 of the war. He has the green chair, he's got the cool background, the lighting, everything. It's a complete set. But let me make sure to... Okay, so there's no audio track, so without further ado, here is the speech.
Speech.
Дорогі українці, українки, коротко про цей день. Звіти з регіонів нашої країни щодо ліквідації наслідків російських ударів та щодо допомоги постраждалим. Суми: удар шахеда по житловому будинку, Кривий Ріг, наслідки російської ракетної атаки. Донеччина, зокрема місто Мирноград, російський удар, пряме влучання авіабомби в житловий будинок. Кожен з цих ударів забрав життя людей. Мої співчуття усім, хто втратив близьких. Була сьогодні окрема розмова по Одесі по допомозі людям після руйнації будинку на проспекті Добровольського. Як і домовлялись, обласна влада та Кабінет міністрів допомагають із новим житлом і іншими подібними питаннями. Загалом, після кожного російського удару всі служби реагують оперативно, всі ресурси задіяні, які потрібні і від ДСНС України, і від влади в областях, і від комунальних служб, Національної поліції. Я хочу зараз ще раз подякувати усім, хто бере участь у рятувальних операціях, працює на розборі завалів, допомагає, підтримує людей, які втратили рідних. Дуже важливо, щоб після російських ударів наші люди не залишались наодинці із болем та проблемами. І це обов'язок місцевої влади, усіх державних та комунальних служб, а якщо потрібно, то й центральної влади, зокрема Кабінету міністрів України, реагувати і регулювати всі ситуації так, щоб люди дійсно відчували, що Україна завжди допомагає. І щоб не сталося, підтримка буде в кожному куточку нашої держави. Саме так як це і потрібно. Особливо відзначу працівників ДСНС України в Сумській області, сержанти Олег Сахненко та Іван Ворожко, майстер-сержант Володимир Пономаренко, капітан Олександр Мойсієнко та полковник Володимир Прокопчук. Також відзначу колектив ДСНС на Дніпровщині, зокрема тих, хто працює в Кривому Розі, допомагає берегти нормальне життя людей. Сержант Максим Залізний, майстер-сержант Олександр Махно, старший лейтенант Ілля Мустяця, капітан Володимир Гаврилюк та працівники Державного гірничо-рятувального загону ДСНС Павло Дорошенко та Євгеній Коновалов. Дякую вам, хлопці, та усім вашим колегам. Ще кілька речей. Провів кілька нарад щодо нашої міжнародної роботи. Перше – Євросоюз. Наступні кроки в напрямку повноправного членства. Вчора Єврокомісія схвалила переговорну рамку. Далі очікуємо рішення європейських лідерів по затвердженню. І буде важливим і для України, і для усієї європейської спільноти. Важливим та сильним сигналом зробити все для початку переговорів уже під час бельгійського головування в першому півріччі цього року. Це має бути нашим спільним темпом і України, і сторони Євросоюзу. Маємо чіткий порядок кроків та, впевнений, можемо досягти результату. Також провів нараду більш стратегічну щодо американського напрямку нашої політики. Про те, як дати більше правильних імпульсів нашій роботі з партнерами і спільному тиску на російську державу протягом усього цього року. Перемогти тут, в Україні, в цьому протистоянні із російським терором – це питання виживання для демократичних систем. Це питання взагалі того, на що здатні демократії. Україна здатна захистити себе за достатньої підтримки. А захистивши себе, ми зможемо гарантувати, що жоден інший міжнародний злочинець не спокуситься агресією, як Путін. Ми можемо захистити життя і мусимо це зробити. Слава кожному і кожній, хто б'ється та працює заради України. Слава нашому народу. Дякую всім, хто з Україною. Слава Україні!
And Herom
Slava.
And that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 749 of the war. And that moves us on into our second segment. We got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. We get to talk to all of y'all. We get to talk about anything y'all want. And literally anything. We get to address all the questions that we've asked y'all. We all get to have a great time here. And of course, I have to say really quickly before we start getting to talk to all y'all, thank you to everyone who has subscribed today. Today, we've gotten 550 subscribers. Brand new to the channel. Brand spanking new. I'm telling you, it's absolutely insane. The Lee Spring Army is growing faster and stronger each and every day. And not only that, tonight we were joined by so many incredible people. Tonight, there was a peak viewership of 8.5 thousand people here on this live stream. 8.5 thousand people here live. Usually we get like 5,000 people about, on average. So it is crazy to see so many people coming here to listen to our news. We're entirely honored by each and every one of you. And if y'all do enjoy this channel and you want to, of course, make sure to watch more of it, you can, of course, subscribe to the channel. It's a little subscribe button. You can also hit the like button too, if you want. It's really nice. But if you subscribe, you'll get notifications whenever we go live on air or whenever we put out a video. And it looks like a lot of people are loving our videos. It looks like a lot of people are loving our streams. The ratings are incredible, and they're just growing greater and greater each and every day. And of course, y'all can, help you can help yourselves to keep apprised of the news if you like it from here. But what am I talking about? There's many YouTube channels to do it. But we were recommended today as a top YouTube channel again, and I'd love to see that. It's incredible to know that people are finding this channel to be worthwhile and do a lot of research and research well at that. And it's incredible to know that the Lee Spring Army just continues to grow at a never-ending, voracious pace is the best way to put it. But Matthew, I know that we asked the question of the chat about a top topic of the night. And it's actually one that I was not able to cover on the news because we had so much stuff to talk about. But it revolves around that Enahada nuclear power plant, as they call it, the ZNPP. He said it, he said PP. But beyond that, some people were talking today about possibly transferring the power plant from Russian control to international control or Ukrainian control. And the Russians said that any kind of transfer of control was a violation of Russian sovereignty. And a lot of people are wondering, why do the Russians still want this power plant? And Matthew, a lot of people seem to have the exact same idea, and I think you may have the same idea as them.
Yes, so we asked you all. We said, first off, Russia refuses to transfer control of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant to the IAEA, and why is that? And 75% said Russia is holding it as a threat, and 13% said Russia doesn't want to let Ukraine use it. And I am very confident that Russia is holding on to that plant because it is a major threat to Ukraine's sovereignty. Because if that thing were blown up or somehow melted down by way of Russian terrorism, that would cause a massive nuclear disaster for Ukraine, which is obviously something Ukraine wants to avoid. And Russia knows they have them over the barrel as long as they control that facility. So they're not going to give that up because that is basically like the dead man's trigger for Russia if something happened where they needed to pull out the last resort card, which means basically triggering a nuclear destruction. So I'm with the 75%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree largely for the same reasons you did. I think it's being held as a threat. I think they're looking at it as a nuclear weapon of a sort, where if they continue to hold on to it, they could, of course, loom nuclear meltdown over the heads of really everyone in Europe as a threat to stop them from doing anything too drastic that they may want to do otherwise. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion, of course. And with that, we are on into the questions themselves, and we have many of them. We have many of them from the live chat. We have many super chats, and I got to say that it is incredible. And I see a lot of people are very happy and proud to see, like Ross Clock, that the subscribership is growing here on the channel, and we are so happy to see it because a long time ago we thought this channel was going to be on the down and out. We got attacked back in the very beginning of October of last year. We lost thousands of subscribers, and from there forward, I viewed that the channel was in a dark age of a sort, where the channel wasn't really gaining any subscribers. It was losing a small amount each and every day, and our reach wasn't as big as it was. And on top of that, we were full-time in law school as well, so we had very little time to try and help the channel to get back out of the dark ages. But nowadays, the channel is growing at a speed that is so fast. It's probably one of the fastest growing Ukraine War YouTube channels out there at the moment, which is crazy to think because that we actually have really not done much to change how this channel is running. Really, we're just doing the same thing that we were before. But a lot of people are really enjoying it, really appreciating it, and finding the channel again, and it's great to us. We're so happy. The channel is larger now than it's ever been. It's at 168,200 subscribers, and that's insane because today, at the very beginning of this morning, we started out at 167,500, and we've already gained really about 700 subscribers today again, and we can't believe it. We can't believe that so many people are finding this channel be worthwhile. We thank y'all so much once again, and I want y'all to know, to all of the new people that are here and all of the people who have been here, that we don't just view all of y'all as numbers. We view y'all as people that appreciate the news and how we cover it, and are finding this to be a very special place. It's an ad-free, sponsor-free stream. We are politically unbiased. We don't pick a political side. We don't even talk about politics on this channel. So it's completely politics free, which is completely different than every other Ukraine War YouTube channel where they shove politics down your throat. And on top of that, we also make things as transparent as possible as far as the support goes to this channel and support goes to fundraisers. You couldn't make it any more transparent than it is here. And I'm glad to know that so many people appreciate the way we run this channel, the way it exists, and not only that, appreciate the kind of news and the quality of reporting that we put out on it too. It means a lot to us, and I got to thank all of y'all once again, all of the new people for subscribing and joining this channel and joining our community, the Lee Spring Army, and also to everyone who's still sticking with us to this day. We appreciate every single one of y'all, and it's incredible to know that y'all are all here. And so with that, Matthew, bring us on into those questions.
All right, and moving back into our super chat questions, up first, we have a $25 donation from Largemouth Ass. Not Bass, it's still just ass. And they put in a $25 donation, and thank you very much for that. They said, could the Free Russians move southeast and flank the occupying troops and have success?
Let's see here. Could they move southeast and flank the occupying troops? as possibly unlikely, because that would require a force buildup for a while, and also there's a decent amount of a decent concentration of Ukrainian forces from Vovchansk to Drovchina. So there wouldn't really be a way for them to try and push behind the invading forces from the southeast, because they would probably run into a fairly large Ukrainian force that would stop them before they could make that possible. At least from what we know at the moment, off of our prior reports of Ukrainian unit locations and stuff like that, that would actually be really difficult to do. So that would be my answer to that. But I got to thank you so much once again for support, Largemouth Ass, and supporting this channel. It means a lot to us that you're one of our supporters. I find your name to be absolutely hilarious. And not only that, your support helps this channel to keep on running. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here at all, because this is the only way that we're able to support the channel outside of the Patreon. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Scott Kemp, who's a longtime channel viewer as well. He puts in a 20, and thank you very much, Scott, for that support as well. He says, you guys are getting to be more important, getting this news out all the time, and thanks. And thank you for the kind words, Scott.
And thank you so much for the kind words as well, Scott. And thank you for your third super chat to the channel, Eva. Also, thank you so much for the kind words. We try our best to get the news out as accurately as possible, as well researched as possible, and I hope that we were able to meet that mark for a lot of y'all tonight. That is my biggest concern running this channel. Matthew's biggest concern right now is running the merch store in reality, because that is actually a massive effort on his end. It takes a lot of time and concentration. So that's really Matthew's massive effort, and it will pay off when you'll finally get to see it on LSA Day when it's finally unveiled. But
March 23rd.
March 23rd. Put that down in your calendar. March 23rd, everyone, is LSA Day, and that's also when the merch store will be unveiled to all of y'all. But my priority focus is a daily one, much like Matthew's is on the merch store, but it's different. It's always trying to make sure that the reporting on the stream is as well fleshed out and well thought out as it can be. And it's something that I always feel like I'm very close to getting to, or just slightly missing the mark on. And I know a lot of y'all find that this is a very quality news source, and it's great reporting and stuff, but I always see the flaws, because I'm actually the one who's baking the cake. So I always see the flaws in the mix, and how it was baked, and how long it was in the oven, and how hot it was, and everything, you know, pretty much. And so I see things where I'm like, I wish I could have done a little bit better here and a little bit better there. But beyond that, I thank you so much, Scott Kemp, for finding our news great. Because while I see the flaws in it, I love to know that people still appreciate it and find it to be incredible. Because I'm always trying to work each and every day to make it just slightly better if possible. Try and get just a little bit of extra more information. Just that extra video clip or that extra picture. So that way the story of what's going on today is better than it was the other day. And hopefully we've been able to keep on an upward track on that as far as our credibility and reporting goes. And apparently, according to you, Scott, we are on that upward track. And I got to thank you so much for the kind words and the praise. And thank you once again for supporting this channel, so that way you can help me to make my mission of more accurate and more fleshed out news reporting on the war possible. And so thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Wubba, who's a longtime channel legend as well. He puts in a 10 and says $10 to skip the intro and get to the news.
Oh, I hate that.
Damn, Wubba.
What? You don't like the intro? You don't like the intro, Wubba? Ban this man. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, Wubba. But still, thank you for the support.
Jeez, man. Oh, good lord. He said, ban this man. Sorry, Wubba. That's like a manic moment or something.
Yeah. I'm like one of the gangsters, man. You were like, Grayson, no, wait. I'm sorry. Come here. It's okay. You know, and then like that, feel like that. But I'm just kidding with you, Wubba. We would never ban you. You've been around here forever. But hey, I mean, I'm happy to hear that you like the news so much. But hey, enjoy the intro. Smell the roses a little bit. Sit around, you know? Like, we love to see everyone getting into the live chat. Like, some people wonder why this stream has always had a 10-minute countdown, and now it's even longer. Like, you know, adding in everything, it's about a 12-minute long countdown. The reason why we have that is because we want everyone to get the notification that the stream's going live and pile in here pretty much, so that way everyone's here for when we start the news. And even then, not a lot of people are here. Like tonight, when we started, there were 2,600 people here already, just in the first 13 minutes by that point. But at the peak, we had 8.4. Well, actually 8.5 exactly. It was like just shy. It was like 30 shy of 8.5. But beyond that, hardly anyone is still here at that point. Only like 30% of y'all are. And we try and have such a long countdown so that way y'all can all be here. And on top of that, we can say hello to all of y'all, because that's really the only moment that I have a moment to be able to type in the live chat. And y'all may see that, because I'll go through and I'll try and say something to everyone that @s me, that puts @the enforcer in their message. Because I don't get to really say hey to y'all a lot or talk to y'all on the live chat much beyond that point, because I'm busy making sure that we're telling y'all the news and really just talking on air, which is a big hurdle on its own, because it takes a lot of focus and concentration and stuff. So I really like the 10-minute countdown just for the fact I get to say hey to y'all. And I'm also sorry to everyone who puts in like big questions or big statements in the first 10 minutes, because you'll probably see that my only response is hello or LSA or howdy or something like that. There's so many of y'all that come in during the 10-minute countdown. If I say anything longer than like a 4-letter word, I won't be able to get to the next person. And I try and say hey to everyone I can. If I miss you in the first 10 minutes, I'm sorry. There are about 2 chats coming in every second. Tonight, it was around 3 chats a second coming in. So it is very hard to see all of the live chats and also to get to say hey to all of y'all. And I hate when I can't do it. So please don't be angry about it, because I'm already sad about it. So you're just going to make me more sad that I didn't get to say hey to you. But know that if I had the ability, I would say hey to all of y'all that are coming in the first 10 minutes. But that's why we have that first 10 minutes, Wubba. That's why we got to say hello to all of y'all. And also, so that way everyone can come in and hear the news for the night. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And thank you, Wubba, for being an old guard of the channel. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jesus UCSB,
Hey!
the longtime channel legend, and he throws in a $20 donation. It's good to see you once again, Jesus, and I hope you're doing well. He says, hola. Let me speak to anyone in DOD or Ukraine that watches. This infiltration is a good strategy that would work to convince the Russian soldiers to turn on Putin. And if Putin loses his army and a coup happens, Putin loses.
And amen, Jesus UCSB. I'd agree with that completely. This may be another inspiring moment for the Russians to give up and turn against the Russian government. And if that is the case, then the Russians lose, because Putin gets overthrown, an interim government comes in, and they're probably going to end the war to focus on what's happening inside of Russia. So I would completely agree with that, Jesus UCSB. That is a great analysis. And if anyone from the Department of Defense is watching, which, Jesus, they actually are, that's a pretty good idea. I'm not saying the sending the CIA guys with the suitcases of money, but I'm saying that would be a pretty smart idea. That's all I'm saying to the DOD folks out there, or the CIA folks out there. But the CIA is already in Russia. They've been there forever. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, Jesus UCSB. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm actually very happy to see you here tonight. And thank you so much once again for being with us, the LSA tanker from Vilseck, Germany. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Chargy, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Charge, for that support. They said it for the In-N-Out Fund. And Charge, I had In-N-Out once when I went to Dallas in Texas about a couple of weeks back, 3 weeks ago actually, and I loved it. It was very good, but sadly, we have no In-N-Outs in Alabama anywhere. They won't come out here, and I kind of understand why, but they are in Texas, though. We do have Buc-ee's, though. That's a good thing. Like, Texas has a bunch of those huge gas stations called Buc-ee's, and I want to go back there. I've only been there twice, and I didn't really get to enjoy it very much. But the In-N-Out burgers, I wish we had them around here. I love them so much. But next time we go out to Texas, we shall grab one in honor of Charge. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, thank you so much for Charge for the support and supporting the In-N-Out Fund. I've never even had an In-N-Out burger, so you're helping me to try and get a delicious flavor of a nice juicy hamburger from Texas. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Charge, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I thank you so much once again for appreciating this channel and wanting us to eat only the best. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to 3 viewers. We have Matt Shear, who put in a 10, as well as Stuart Sampson, who also put in a 10, and Heather Fitzgibbon, who threw in yet another 10. And huge shout out to Matt, Stewart, and Heather very much for that support. And no comments to address. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, thank you to all 3 of you for the support. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but your support means a lot, and it helps this channel to keep on running. And if it wasn't for folks like y'all who did throw in those kinds of that bit of support, with or without a comment, it would make this channel very hard to run. It means a lot to us that y'all appreciate the channel enough that y'all find it worthwhile to support, and I can't thank y'all enough for doing that. And so thank you to all three of y'all once again, and y'all will go down in the Hall of Heroes of the Lee Spring Army, helping this channel to keep on rolling. And so that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Tom Xman, who puts in a 10. He says, guys, help the channel. Give super chat.
Oh, well, I mean, they can. They can. But Tom, you always say something like that. You always do. And I want to make sure to make it very clear, because we have so many new viewers here. Believe it or not, it is pretty late into the stream, actually. It's 2 hours and 5 minutes in, and there's still 5,400 people here, which means there's a lot of new people. And I want to make this very clear to everyone who's new. You do not have to support this channel. It is not a pay-to-play channel where you have to pay to be recognized on this channel. It is a free-to-watch channel. We don't have ads. We don't have sponsors. We never will on these live streams. However, some video projects in the future, because of the budgetary constraints, may have to have a sponsor. So, you know, that's something that we will have to give on with that is videos, because the budget for a video, you know, the kind that we're talking about in the future might be pretty high, so it would require a sponsor really just to subsidize the video. But beyond that, these streams, these live streams that you're watching right now, will always run ad-free and sponsor-free forever. The only way that these streams run is through viewer support, like yours, Tom Xman. But that doesn't mean that you all have to support it. You can watch absolutely free if you want to. Even if you like the channel, you do not have to support it. You can just hit the like button. That does a lot to help us out in the algorithms and push us out to more people. You can just be active in the live chat and just say nice things like, I like the channel, keep it going. That means a lot to us too. I mean, it's just... you do not have to support the channel. And while Tom Xman loves the channel and would love to see us get a load of support, I always want y'all to know that y'all never have to support the channel unless if you want to, and only then if you want to. If you like the channel and you don't want support, you don't have to do it. I want to make that so clear, because I never want anyone on this channel to feel like they're being compelled or kind of coerced into supporting it. That's never how we've run the channel, and that's not how I ever want to run it either. But still, thank you so much for the kind words, Tom X, because I know what you mean behind that support in that statement, and it means a lot to us to know that you would want to see the channel being massively supported, because it does help us, but nevertheless, I don't want anyone to feel forced to do that. But still, thank you so much once again, and thank you for your kindness, Tom. Thank you. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Rob Horvath, who puts in a $20 donation. He is a longtime channel viewer, and he says, more pierogies for you guys.
Hey, and thank you so much, Rob Horvath, for wanting us to have more pierogies. I absolutely love them, and my favorite is the one with potato in it, which is all of them. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Rob, and helping this channel to keep on running. Thank you for being one of our Canadian viewers and making this channel possible. If it wasn't for folks like you, Rob, we wouldn't be able to eat the delicious sacred pierogi and really enjoy the flavor. Really, you know, really like marinating in the flavor. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that quite well. And I don't know why I zoomed in on like the area of New England and like northeastern Canada, but nevertheless, thank you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to, let's see here, it's going to go to a Butchie777, who's also a longtime channel legend, throws in a 20. And says, I'm looking forward to when the clocks change in the UK so I can catch more of the live stream. And I love to see how this channel is growing so much now. And please take a beautiful, succulent live chat question. And I forgot that in the UK, there's probably a different like time zone thing going on with daylight savings time. I don't know how it works for y'all. But I actually like the new daylight savings time. It's better than the other like normal time in my opinion, because you get more time in the afternoon. But that's just me. But Enforcer, what say you?
Me, honestly, I like this time as well. Whatever this is, whether this be daylight saving times or daylight savings time or not, I like this better because, like Matthew said, there's more light in the afternoon. Because before this, it got dark at like 5. And usually because we run this stream and then I stay up till like 3 in the morning because I'm just trying to get the coffee to wear off, I usually wake up in like the middle of the day. So I really don't get a lot of daylight most times now. It's usually dark whenever I'm up and awake. So I really like it because I get a lot more daylight. I love it. And I hope that y'all like it too, so that way I can get more daylight. Like lobby the government to make this the normal time and never change it throughout the whole year, so that way I can get a little bit more daylight each day. But beyond that, Butchie777, How kind of you to say that you can't wait for the entire way that your nation measures time to shift so that way you can watch more of the stream. I love to hear that. And I thank you so much for enjoying the channel that much, Butchie777. And I know you do, because you've been here forever. You've been here for 2 years. 2 years, Butchie777. You've been here with us. And you're still here. That is incredibly cool to think about it. And also, thank you once again for being one of our diehard British viewers of the British contingent of the Lee Spring Army. And I hope that you continue to be one of the leading people who is a British viewer here in the Lee Spring Army. We'd love to know that we have viewers all around the world, and while, you know, we'll say a joke here and there, which ends up offending someone, because, you know, we'll say, like, Geschlecht Beleichman, and then someone in the live chat's like, that's it, you made fun of the Germans? I'm gone. And it's like, what? It's like, we make fun of Americans. It's like, we make fun of everyone. Don't go. Or better yet, Matthew, screw you.
Oh, man. You know, I made a reference earlier. I said the hot dog man is like the abominable snowman. He's ugly and unseen around these parts. Truer words were never spoken.
Goodness gracious, Matthew. That's brutal. That's brutal.
Yeah. Well, I don't see him around here. I'm looking, but I don't see him.
But not as brutal as he was done on that date. Oh! Moving on from that. Oh, man. Oh, nothing like a good threatening of an ass beat. Yes, moving on from that, I gotta thank you so much once again for support, Butchie777, and helping the channel keep on running, and we will make sure to get that succulent, beautiful Chinese meal, or live chat more so. So, Matthew, what do we got?
And the live chat question this time is going to go to, let's see here, AF Kaplan, who says, considering all the graft, corruption, and corner cutting we've seen in Russia, how secure are their nuclear facilities?
Probably not that secure. I mean, we really don't know on a intricate security level how it works. We know in America that nuclear power plant security is pretty good. You know, we know that from personal experience. But going off of what the Russians do for their nuclear power plants, I really don't know. They may not be secure at all. And one thing that I'd have to say probably no nuclear power plant is secure from around the world right now is a drone attack. I have a feeling that that's probably a place that the United States nuclear energy boards and associations could probably look into a lot more, is the airspace that a drone is allowed to fly around a nuclear power plant, and also the anti-drone defenses that they may have there. Because while they have it secure on the ground, it's not so secure from the air. And I'm not saying anything outright, but I'm going to call it, if anything ever happened to a nuclear power plant in America, it most likely would be a drone-based attack at this point, and I think that's where a lot of U.S. security focus needs to move towards, is working on anti-drone defenses for our nuclear power plants. I can't really speak on the Russian end, however, because whatever that is, it is whatever it is. I'm sure there's a lot of corruption involved, probably a high lack of training, amongst many other things. And so I can't really speak to the Russian end on how they would protect their nuclear power plants or how they're protected. But one thing I can talk about with a little bit of expertise, actually, because Matthew me actually ended up getting a lot of it trying to do a project earlier on in the channel's history, and it never took off because we just never could make the video well enough where we were happy with it, is having run-ins with nuclear power plant security. And after having several run-ins, well, it wasn't like bad run-ins, it's just like a passerby kind of a thing. But after having a couple of run-ins, and trying to make this video possible, you find out that there are some things that certainly need to be improved on for the security of this nation's nuclear power infrastructure that will hopefully help us out in the future. But beyond that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that addresses that the best I can, because we really have no idea what the security in Russia goes off of. But I hope my light knowledge of American nuclear power plant security may give an idea of where the Russians probably have a vulnerable weakness, because we also have one there at the moment right now. Thank God no one's taking advantage of it. But with that, we are on to the next one.
In our next super chat is going to go to Viosta, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much for that. He says, Amu, don't forget to drink your milk. I'm telling you, you gotta drink milk. It's good for your bones. Best to have strong bones. You don't have weak ones. Those weak bones, I'm telling you, jerks. There's jerks.
And I gotta tell you, calcium is very good for you. Some people said, wow, you got the strongest calcium I've ever seen. And I really do. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much, Vsoda, for the support. I have to say this, Mandy. I think that's not the first time he's sent in the super chat, because it says it is, but I swear he's thrown in like several before that one.
Oh yeah, he's definitely sending another one. That's why I left that part off. I'm like, Viosta has been around for a long time, and he's put in a super chat before. I think YouTube's glitching with that.
Man, they tweak it. They tweak it for
Man,
real.
like that guy on that video, like leaning back and forth, going, "Oh, blad, they're hitting him! They're hitting him, blad! Oh God, they're hitting him! Oh look!"
Wait, no, man, he was going, "They're hitting him! They're doing it! They're hitting him!" Like they're doing it.
Yeah, he was gritting and grinding those teeth.
Man, oh, better yet, or someone else. We won't forget to drink our milk. Honestly, to tell you all kind of like my dietary routine, I don't drink sodas hardly at all. I only drink like water and milk and maybe tea. And it's usually like sweet tea in a very, very, very small amount of it. Like if I was to like categorize everything I drink, it's like 70% water, 27% milk, and then 3% like sweet tea in sodas and stuff like that. So there's really not a lot of soda there. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support because milk is my favorite thing to drink outside of water. I love milk, and it's wonderful stuff. It really does strengthen the bones. But make sure not to strengthen the bones too much, because if you actually get too much calcium in your system, you can actually make your bones brittle. If you have too little calcium in your system, you can actually make your bones a little too flexible because of a lack of calcium. So there's a perfect like mix of too much calcium and too little calcium that gives you the perfect strength and tensile in your bones. But beyond that, thank you so much once again, Viosta, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope I was able to address that well and go into a small rabbit hole about the calcification of your bones. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from the Pepsi Man 101. Hey! And thank you very much, Pepsi Man, for that support. I gotta tell you what, I'd rather be the Pepsi Man than the Coke Man, because I'm telling you, it's better to be the Pepsi Man. He says, should Ukraine push more forces into Russia?
No. Now Pepsi Man, great question. Pepsi. You know, I actually don't drink enough Pepsi or Coke to tell you which one's better, to be honest with you. I think they're both all right, actually. But I don't think Ukraine should push more forces into Russia, because right now this is an entirely Russian-on-Russian affair with some Ukrainian armed support to one faction. I don't think they need to send their own forces in, because then that makes that a Ukrainian invasion of Russia instead of a Russian invasion of Russia. So I would highly discourage such an attempt by the Ukrainians, because then the Russians may actually have a grounds to use a nuclear weapon on them. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, Pepsi Man 101. And thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to be possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jay Tevis, who throws in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Jay Tevis, as always, for that support. They said there is a movement to discredit Nexta, excuse me. And can you explain who they are and how they came about? And I will tell you, because I constantly quote Nexta all the time in my short war videos, and I know where the movement to discredit Nexta has come from. It got sparked because a couple of people in the pro-Ukraine community did not like the stories they were putting out. They had a spin on it that they didn't like. But for some background about Nexta, they were founded in Belarus, and that is part of the conspiracy theory that's being created against them to make them sound like they're pro-Russian or something like that. But in reality, they were labeled extremists inside of Belarus, and they had to leave. So now their headquarters is in Warsaw, Poland, and they are not aligned with the Belarusian government whatsoever. And that's why the Belarusians basically squeezed them out. That's my understanding, at least. But I've never seen them put out anything that is very questionable. I always double check everything I put on the short war summaries, including Nexus content, and I haven't seen anything to set off any red alerts just yet. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to agree with Matthew. I believe that Nexta is a very credible source of news, and we've actually used them a lot in making our own news here on this channel. The attempt to discredit them has been a lot like the attempt to discredit our channel by certain people out there. It's completely unbased, and on top of that, it's not based in any kind of factual evidence that they're some kind of a bad group of actors. They're fairly good at what they do, and we've never seen them report anything that's inaccurate. As a matter of fact, they're usually ahead of the reporting curve on most things, and they are a good part of what helps us to also be ahead of the reporting curve as well, especially on YouTube. Nexta is sometimes one of the first groups on Twitter to release a breaking news thing. Usually, they help us greatly in being some of the first people on YouTube to also break that news. So I would have to say the attempt to discredit them is one that is completely unfounded. I trust Nexta. If that's anything to go off of, I feel like everyone should trust Nexta, and the people who are attempting to discredit them are attempting to discredit them because Nexta put out some news at one point that wasn't the pearly white gates of heaven as far as the Ukrainian situation was going, and everyone wanted to start bashing them for that. And it wasn't anything.
Well, do you want to? Well, do you want to know who was one of the main people leading the spearhead to discredit Nexta?
Who?
The hot dog man.
No way! I can't believe that. That's crazy.
The hot dog man has gone out of his way to post things saying to basically don't cite them and use them. And I have a feeling it might be motivated by the fact that we constantly cite them as well. So, you know, taking Nexta away, we would have a hard time sourcing our news. We'd have to find other sources as well to get the exact same news. So I have a feeling it might have some ulterior motivations behind that.
Yeah, and if you're listening to that guy to find out what a credible source of news is, you're already lost because that guy is the least credible source of news you can find because the guy literally just tries to do anything to try and make views and cash, which is the complete wrong way of why you would be running anything. But beyond that, that is what it is. You know, so we don't want to get into that too much because I feel like that's rubbing salt into the wound at this point. But beyond that, I do thank you so much for the support, and I hope that does address that well, Jay Tevis, because I believe they're a credible source. They are a credible source, and I've never seen them report anything wrong. And so with that, we are on, believe it or not, to the next one.
And let's address the most contentious poll of the night. It wasn't the poll about nuclear annihilation in Ukraine. It wasn't a poll about oil. It's the poll about if you could ship 100 crates of soda to Ukrainian soldiers, which would you send? 68% said 100 crates of Coca-Cola, and 32% said 100 crates of Pepsi. And I have to say, I'm with Rusty in the live chat. I think Mexican Coke is the best. Mexican Coca-Cola, that is. Because it has the real sugar in it, and it doesn't have all that stuff that the American Coca-Cola has in it, which I don't like. But I would send them 100 crates of that, because Pepsi has more sugar in it, and also it doesn't taste that great, in my opinion, compared to Coca-Cola. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'll tell you, Mexican Coke does hit hard. I mean, like, the Mexican Cokes are some of the heaviest hitting sodas out there as far as how good they are.
Man, once you start, like, drinking the Mexican Coke, you can't stop. It's like an addiction.
Did you know that Mexico is actually the country that purchases the most Coca-Cola per person by volume per year?
Yeah, it's actually unfortunate, though, because they have to do that because that's their, like, drink, because there's a hard time getting water in some places, so they drink more Coke to get clean, like a drinking water.
Yeah, but you know, they still love this stuff. Like some towns
Oh, yeah.
legitimately love it. Like there was a documentary that I actually watched on YouTube here recently, and it was about the addiction to Coca-Cola over water. Like it wasn't because the water quality was bad in this town. It was actually decent drinking water. It's just that they loved Coca-Cola that much. And on top of that, Coca-Cola pretty much runs a monopoly on the soft drinks industry in Mexico because they price their drinks so low, they pretty much choke everyone to death, Pepsi and everyone else. Mexico, if any country in the world is a Coca-Cola country, is a Coca-Cola country, which is very interesting because you would think the United States would be, considering that the United States is the home of Coca-Cola, but it's actually Mexico. Interestingly enough, which is really cool. Well, it's not really cool for them because in some instances it actually causes some really bad health side effects, like, you know, terrible teeth and things like that. But beyond that, I mean, that is pretty wild to think that Mexico is pretty much Coke country, not America. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. You know, I hope so. But still, thank you so much once again, everyone, for answering that poll and letting us know what y'all think, because it's actually crazy. There's a lot more Coca-Cola enjoyers out there than Pepsi enjoyers. It's pretty much a 2-to-1 difference. But with that, let's get on to that next one, Matthew.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Butchie777 yet again, who put in another 20-pound donation. A very heavy donation. I'm struggling to lift this 20-pound donation, but thank you very much, Butchie, for that support. They said, what happened to Kanirov, Don? Don. He's gone a little quiet, Don. Is this TikTok goat-loving army still in Ukraine? Don. And would he send them to Russia to help their problem? Don. I just don't know, Don.
To explain what happened, Don. Kedorov ate too much ham and cheddar, Don. And he lives in the presidential palace, Don. In the Grozny, Don. And he pretty much just hangs out there, Don. And if we look around, Don, you can see a whole bunch of interesting stuff, Don. You can see this massive fountain, Don. And this big garden, Don. And this gate, Don. And this drawbridge, Don. That is like literally a drawbridge. I'm not even kidding. And you know, he pretty much lives there, done. The Kidirovites are done. They're not really in Ukraine anymore, done. They're back in Chechnya, done. Probably dealing with the Ingushian Liberation Army, done, or something else like that, done. But you never know, done. They could be anywhere, done. But the one thing you can guarantee is done is that if there's a god nearby, done, the Chechens are not that far away. The Kadyrovite Chechens at least are done. But with that done, I thank you so much once again for the support, done, and helping this channel to keep on done, running done. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, done, we wouldn't be able to keep this presidential palace as bashing as it is unequivocally done. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this shit. This is crazy, done. It's literally like a giant palace in the middle of the city, done. Pretty
Man, don't ever get in the way of their wedding ceremonies or anything. Like the like gangster G-wagons all blacked out and the Land Rovers running around. They literally pull out AKs on people when you get in the way of their like presidential convoys. They just treat these civilians like absolute crap here. Like they let them know how low they really are in comparison to the royalty, quote unquote, of this place. They just treat people like crap.
Yeah, I mean, it's a brutal place, Chechnya. It's a brutal place throughout all of Russia, but especially wherever the autonomous republics exist, it is brutal. Because the Russians, like, the way the Russian government works with the autonomous republics is that they'll make a president, quote unquote, of the republic, and for Chechnya, the president is Kadyrov, and he pretty much gets free reign to do whatever he wants as long as they pay their dues to the Russian central government. So it's pretty much free reign down here for this guy. He can do whatever he wants inside of Chechnya, and no one can stop him, which is crazy to think about. And it's a whack world down there in the Caucasus Mountain region because of that. But with that, I hope that does address that well, Butchie777, and thank you once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing rolling, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be making this thing possible right now. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Terrence Custer, who throws in a $10 donation and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Terrence, as always, for helping to support our operation and keep us putting the news out. And we also have a 10 from Junebug72, who says, just something, because it's better than nothing. And that's true. That the Russians should learn that too. They said, I support you and us completely, always have. And thank you for another colorful and informative stream, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you for enjoying that stream and finding it to be colorful and informative. I mean, it means a lot to me. It really does. I appreciate that. I really do. And I love to know that you enjoy the channel and you want to see it keep running and you're supporting it. So that way you can help us to keep this thing running. Junebug, you've been here forever. Junebug72 in particular, because we have a Junebug and a Junebug72. But Junebug72, you've been here forever. And I love to know that you find the stream to be as informative and colorful as it was at the beginning. A lot of people always talk about how much this channel has changed over time. And it's really crazy to think about that, because in reality we have. I mean, it's been over 2 years that we've been running this show. And shows do change over time. And, you know, of course, over 2 years, the show will change a lot. And I got to thank you so much for still enjoying it 2 years later, after all the adventures that we've been through, after everything that we've covered in Ukraine and around the world. We're all still here, and you're still enjoying the channel, Junebug, and I gotta say, that means a lot to me, and it's so nice to hear such kind words being thrown our way. Well, you know what, Matthew? Thrown sounds violent. Thrown sounds violent. The Dawn doesn't like that, Dawn. It needs to sound more gentle. You dropped it our way. You put it our way. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is gonna go to Panama Floyd, another channel legend who puts in a 10. He says, Enforcer Matt, speaking about news sources, is TVP really back? Or is it just an individual spoofing their old address and showing repeats?
Do you know what TVP is, Matthew?
I've heard of them, but I don't know anything about their organization specifically. I'm not even really sure where they're operating from, if they're on cable or Twitter or what. But I've seen them somewhere, but I couldn't tell you for certain.
Well, I found out that they had textured vegetable protein, and I don't really know a lot about them. So sadly,
that's that stuff those young people like, I think.
Let's see, textured or texturized vegetable protein, also known as textured soy protein, soy meat, or soya chunks, is a defatted soy flour product, a byproduct of extracting soybean oil. This often uses a meat analog or meat extender. It is quick to cook, with a protein content comparable to some meats. Interesting, I didn't know that. But moving on from that,
I didn't either.
Sadly, Panama. I've got to declare ignorance on that. I don't really know a lot about TVP, and so unfortunately, I wouldn't really be able to talk about if they're back or not because I never even knew they were gone in the first place. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. You do make this thing possible, Panama Floyd, although we don't really have a good answer to that question. And I hope you do forgive our ignorance and stupidity, because sadly, I just really don't know about those folks well enough to talk about them. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in 2 super chats, $7 apiece. And thank you very much, Margaret, for that support. The first one, she says, live chat question, please. And we shall grab that one first. And this live chat question in honor of Margaret is going to go to Anonymous, who says, a.k.a. Calm, given that Putin states Russia is ready for war, nuclear war that is, can either of you talk about what may be the U.S. prep plans?
The U.S. prep plan for that would be to have nuclear armed forces on standby in Europe. If anything got nuked in Europe or the United States, we would probably immediately send those aircraft over the horizon into Russia to start bombing targets, or to start bombing the Russian armed forces in Ukraine and near the border regions. Or we may start launching intermediate-range ballistic missiles into Russia, armed with nuclear warheads, in a hope to knock out strategic Russian military sites. We wouldn't go for the government in Russia first. We would actually go for their armed forces first, and then the government later if things continue to escalate. Because if a nuclear weapon is used on America or a NATO ally, nuclear escalation is immediate at that point. There is no buildup of a conventional war and then the nukes come later. It would be the nuclear weapons first and then followed by a conventional war most likely. But with that, I hope that does address that live chat question from Anonymous fairly well. And thank you so much, Margaret Hemsley, for sponsoring that live chat. And what is the second super chat that Margaret Hemsley threw in?
And on the second one, she said, welcome to the LSA to the new brothers and sisters and all in between, old ones like me or young ones. You're important and valued.
And welcome to everyone. And Margaret Hemsley, that's very good words to send to everyone here. Everyone is welcome here. Everyone is valid here. As long as you are pro-Ukraine, you are welcome here. It does not matter anything else about you, where you're from, what kind of leanings you have, anything like that. That does not matter. You're welcome here as long as you're pro-Ukrainian. We're one of the few channels to say that, and I'm glad that we are. But beyond that, I got to thank you so much once again, Margaret Hemsley, for giving all the new Lee Spring Army members a warm welcome onto the stream, because if I'm doing the math correctly, we have gotten 700 subscribers today, I believe. So that's 700 new ones coming into the Lee Spring Army, and so many new youngins that will be getting their Lee Spring Army wings, their Lee Spring Army Eagles, and continuing to join the rest of us as we cover this news. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Margaret Hemsley. Thank you for giving everyone a warm welcome. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Carrie Ann Corzo, who puts in the 5, and also longtime channel legend, along with Nick, by the way. And they said, just a little something to show our support, and now go eat something. And I'll tell you what, I will go eat something after this is over. Every time we get off the stream, every single night, around 12 or so these days, we go and eat, because we get starved a lot sometimes. And tonight, I'm feeling the starving. But thank you very much, Carrie, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Thank you so much, Carrie, for the support. Thank you for supporting that greatly. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, because I've been starving to death right now for a while on the stream. Zelensky's speeches are so short nowadays that we can't really use them as like a restroom and snack period, because that's actually how we used to use the speeches, because they used to be like 7 minutes long and we could do all that and then come back and be fine and run it however long we needed to. But nowadays his speeches are only like 4 minutes long, which doesn't give us enough time to go get food and then come back, eat it, and then be ready. So sadly, we will have to get off stream and gobble down some food, because I am starving to death. I'm probably going to eat those little salami things that we got, Matthew. You know what I mean? Like the little salami and cheese.
Oh, yeah, man.
Oh.
Those little mozzarella, like with hard salami, those are just like excellent.
I really like the ones with pepperoni on them, but the salami ones aren't bad either.
I don't like those. I don't like that, whatever that is. That's pastrami or whatever. I don't like that with it. I just like the ones with the hard salami. Yeah, I don't like that. That tastes bad.
Yeah, the prosciutto is terrible. The pepperoni is really good, and the salami is all right. I mean, I'm not going to crap on the salami. It's pretty good. But nevertheless, thank you so much for the support, Carrie Ann. And I guess you're kind of getting a look into the diet of the Enforcer after the streams. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Mark Hickman. And it's good to see you once again, Mark. I think I saw you earlier today somewhere else. He puts in a 5 and says, take a chat. And we shall take a chat in honor of Mark. Good friend, Mark. He is going to get one honored here by Viosta. And I butchered that all up. This one's honored by Mark, and it goes to Viosta, who says, "Did you guys hear about the 80,000-ish decommissioned missiles to be sent to Ukraine from Canada? It's pretty cool tools to put to use."
I actually did not hear about that at all, Matthew. Did you hear about that?
I did not. Decommissioned missiles, though, like, what does that mean, Enforcer? Like, explain to me, like, what has to be done? Does a warhead have to be put back on the thing, or what?
I think decommission means that those things are so old that they've pretty much expired.
Oh dear.
So an expired.
They're dumping trash on them.
I guess. I mean, I know. I would have to look into more what a decommissioned missile is because, hell, I would really have no idea. I don't know if that means that they've taken out the solid rocket fuel out of the missile, or if they've taken out the warhead, or if it's expired due to its service life now passing. I really don't know what that means, really. It could mean anything at this point. I'll have to look into that a little bit more and see. I actually haven't heard about that news as well, but I will be looking into that and trying to get a better answer for that going on into the future. But thank you once again for the support and letting us know about that, at least, so that way I can go and research it a little bit more and find out something about those missiles. But thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Wubba once again, who this time puts in a 10 and says, "Late night pizza run money." And this would be a hell of a late night pizza run. I don't even think pizza places are open this late. If they were, I'd be shocked. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree. I don't even know if pizza places are open these times of day, these times of night. Actually, it's almost midnight around here. But I would love to have a pizza. I would grill for a pizza. I would krill for a pizza. You know what I mean? Like, what would you do for a Klondike bar, Matthew?
What would I do for one?
Yeah, what would you do for one?
I would pay for it.
Oh, okay, that's very anticlimactic, but all right, all right. Then.
You see, I'm just a very simple person. I said, "What would you do for the product from the store?" I said, "Pay for it. I'm not like I'm gonna steal it or anything. So here's the money."
Man, I'm telling you, man, I'd do heinous things for Klondike bar. That's what I would do. Heinous
Man,
things.
why are these people doing all these drastic things and these weird things for Klondike bars? Like, have you ever thought of just giving them like the $5 for it? Come on, man.
I'm telling you, man, I'd be a criminal for a Klondike bar. I would do felon things, but
I think they're just using that as a scapegoat to do something nasty because I'm like, you don't have to do that for the Klondike bar. You could just pay for it.
Your Honor, I threatened them with bodily harm for a Klondike bar.
He would be the type to like say that. "Oh, you want to fist fight me, buddy? Come here, pal. I'm gonna fist fight you. Put your dukes up,
dude. That's gonna be the new version of the meme. Drake's the kind of guy. It's gonna be Hot Dog Man's the kind of guy. That's gonna be our meme. Oh man,
he's the kind of guy to say, "Put your dukes up, boy. I'm gonna fight you."
Nah,
I'm gonna say, "Hey, get the hell off me, you crackhead."
Better yet, Matthew. No. Better yet, that's the kind of person to threaten something like that. But when you get in a live chat, when they go, oh my god, dude!
Oh
my
man,
Lord.
Trembling and shaking and stuff. My goodness.
And I mean, like, it's like, what was so stupid about it? I don't even feel like going into it that much. But what was so stupid about it is that I think that's the first time you ever went over there in the live chat and was like active over there during some stupid crap like this. And that guy has come over here like what 5 times and we hardly even get phased. Like, we're just like whatever. I mean, what lame, and also crazy, like mentally ill or something. But still, beyond that, we went down some crazy rabbit hole right there. But nevertheless, thank you so much, Wubba, for the support and helping us with a late night pizza fund, because we will get a late night pizza hopefully soon, or we may just get a pizza in the middle of the day. But thank you for supporting the pizza fund, because you help us to eat. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And it's finally arrived. I've been waiting months for this. We have a $10 super chat from CIA Accounts Payable, Black Ops Accounting. Oh, we got the right division this time. I'm glad they got it right. They said invoice number 00945, Info Warfare Services.
Yes!
And we must be doing a good job. We've gotten our raise around here. We've got a $10 raise. I'm telling you what. Thanks to the government for that.
I would like
Although they're about to rob us blind with taxes, though.
Oh, God.
But thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Government, sir, for the support. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank the CIA, and I got to thank all the people who are from the CIA watching this channel for finally getting us paid. $10 is a small step in the direction of the back pay that we are owed, but we are greatly appreciative to everyone at the CIA who really enjoys this show and supports it to help it to keep running, and hopefully puts us on the payroll eventually. We have to make sure, for legal reasons, videos that we say that we are not funded, sponsored, or operated by the CIA. We are not CIA operatives running this
Absolutely
channel.
not.
We are not affiliated with the CIA, but I gotta tell you, we love the feds. We love the feds, man. Like, they're great people. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that quite well. A huge shout out to everyone out there who may actually be from the CIA watching the show, because we honestly are surprised when we find out that certain people are watching the show, because we never believed that we made it to a level where people would actually care like that. So when we hear General so-and-so is watching, or this guy's watching, or that guy's watching, and the Czech foreign minister's watching, and all these people, we're like, what the hell are they watching? Like, we're like, what are they watching for? Like, that's crazy. But still, I mean, we're highly honored by these folks. So from what we know, from what we may know, there may be CIA folks watching the channel tonight. Who knows? But if y'all are here, thank you and hello. But with that,
If they're here watching, can y'all slip like a job application my way or something like that? A little, just like a little small one.
Can you slip us one of those psyop shots? I can't, I feel like we do all right. But with that, thank you once again for the support, CIA, the CIA Pay Office. Thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to Scribe, who puts in the 5 and says, have you heard of U-Gears? They are a Ukrainian mechanical wood puzzle maker with a few fun ones, like a tractor towing a tank and the sinking of Moscow, what was that ship? Moskva. And actually, I do know about U-Gears because a viewer sent us 3 of them, a very kind viewer. And let me go over here and check real quick and see which ones they are, and I'll try to yell it across the room. Let's see. It's, I have the Ghost of Kiev Attacks one, I have the ship one, and I have a third one, but I can't see it because it's behind the counter over here. But I have 3 different ones, and sadly I haven't made them yet. Actually, I've left them in the original packaging. I put them up on the top of my collector's shelf over here because they're so cool looking. I didn't want to take them out of the package. But that's a very cool company, by the way. Like, those puzzles they make are very intricate, and I like them a lot. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, I get to tell you, folks, I've heard about U-Gears a lot. Believe it or not, when I was a kid, back in high school, like in 2018, I actually wanted to get a U-Gears model. I'll show you all the exact one because I still remember it to this day because I still haven't gotten it to this day. But it is this cabriolet car right there. This one. This thing was so cool. It still is. I mean, like, no lie. If I could get one of these things, I'd probably spend a little bit of time building it. Although I don't know when I'd find that time. But I'll show y'all why I think it's cool, because U-Gears has a video of the thing right here, and it's cool. It's just cool. So here it is.
About that music, though.
Oh, yeah. Copyrighted. But you see the little thing rolling? It is rubber wind-up, so it actually can roll on its own. It's really beautiful looking. It has actual articulating doors, which is really cool. It has working windshield wipers.
Oh, that's cool.
It has a flip-up little glove box deal. And also, you can pop open the hood. It has a like a working engine in it. You know, at least it looks like it's working when you like wind up the rubber band. It has a working steering wheel, and the thing moves. It has a little thing to pop open the hood on right there.
You know, I just have a hunch, but I have a feeling that these Ukrainians, I'm not sure what makes me think this, but with all the detail and appreciation for like little small things they have here, they might be pretty damn good at making like high-tech weaponry. I don't know.
I think so. Like, I think they might be. But
might have a glow up one day.
I think they will. I think they will. Have faith in these people. They'll do great. They'll do great things. And look, they even have a little toolkit and a little car jack and everything for you to put onto the car. I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's really cool.
Oh, and also, Walter Illicotta said, Enforcer Matt, do you and the Enforcer still have the ship coins I gave you? And yes, that is literally sitting right to the right side of the U-Gears models as well on the top of my model shelf. I keep every single thing y'all send us. It's literally like on the left shelf over here in my office. All of it is in the model case. So it's right next to the little model Ferrari over there. So in good hands. It's under lights too, so it looks cool. But once again, everybody that sends us stuff, like, huge thanks to y'all for doing that, because I really do appreciate it. I have a huge appreciation for models of any sort, and it's super cool. And also the ship coins are very cool as well. But Enforcer, what were you about to say?
Matthew hoards like most of the stuff we get. Like, I never get to see it. Like, beyond like one look. There are a couple of things that I've been able to keep. One of them is that ship coin from the USNS Loyal, and I gotta thank you so much for sending that. It's really cool. I also got to keep the patch from the USS George C. Marshall that Rob Eisman sent. I have that in here, and I also have the chunks of coal that we were sent from the Ark Reef Conservation Company down in Florida, Matthew. Remember that sent us the chunks of coal from the
Oh,
SS
yeah.
Portreo de Anno? I still have those, and I actually put them inside of my closet here in this room. And pretty much the entire closet is like dedicated as like a small archive of the cool things that y'all send. Also, there isn't really a lot of lights on in there most of the time, so it's really good to preserve items with, especially like the chunks of coal. So I put them in a place that's dark, that's you know, not like subject to rapid temperature changes or humidity changes throughout the day, so that way it'll be preserved as best as possible. And also, that's probably one of the coolest things in my mind that we've been sent. It was a viewer that is actually the CEO of a massive fleet of ships that operates out of southern Florida, and what they do is reef conservation in the area. That's what the entire thing works around. And they were able to find 42, the company found 42 small pieces of coal that came from this ship called the SS Portrero de Anno. And what is cool about the Portrero de Anno is that it was sunk in, I believe, the Gulf of Mexico, pretty much, by a German U-boat in 1942. And it actually led Mexico into World War II. This was actually their justification for entering the war on the side of the Allies. And there is a picture of the ship burning right there. It was an oil tanker. And some people are going to be like, why in the world were there chunks of coal on an oil tanker? Well, because it was an oil tanker that transported oil, but the ship was powered by coal. So the coal from the coal bunkers in this ship, after it sank, the ship ended up breaking up under the water because the currents are a little bit strong in the area, and some of the coal ended up getting deposited out of the ship and out of the coal bunkers, and some of it ended up in the area where this reef conservation was going on. This viewer who runs this fleet of ships, they started dredging up these little pieces of coal, and then they packed some of them up, sealed them up in a special wrap. We can't actually touch the coal because it's inside of a special sealed bag. But they sent it to us. So we actually have 3 of the 42 pieces of coal that came off of the Portreo de Anno's wreck, which is
super cool.
So cool. It is literally a piece of Mexican history. That is like having a piece of China off of the Lusitania for the United States for World War I's history, because that's what would eventually lead us into World War I. This is the same thing for Mexico, is pieces of coal and other artifacts from the Portreo de Anno. So that is incredibly cool to me, and probably one of the coolest things that I have here in my collection of things that y'all have sent, but there's still really cool stuff. Incredibly cool stuff, and we thank everyone who's ever sent anything because we treasure all of it. Matthew stole like half of my stuff. I
kind of did, but it's in good hands though, because I have like actual model cases to put it in, so that way it's not sitting on just a desk. I think that does it more justice to put it under the light.
Put it under the light, but still,
how I excuse stealing it.
Yeah, Matthew steals stuff like the British Museum does, and then he justifies it. But beyond that,
oh dear man, oh my,
But hey, man, I'm just saying, you know, like in the British Museum's defense, if they had sent some of that stuff back to Iraq and Syria like they were wanting to before the Arab Spring began, that stuff wouldn't exist today. So a little bit of defense to the British Museum. Some historical artifacts would not exist in some areas of the world if they had actually sent it back. So, you know.
So they use the same excuse I use. They said,
literally.
Oh, Governor, it'd look better under the light, Governor. We're going to keep it in a model case up here in the UK, okay? We're not sending it back to your place to sit it on the desk.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what they did. Because there's some things that they got from ancient Babylonia and some other civilizations that existed within the area of the Tigris and Euphrates, which spans through Syria and Iraq, that they ended up getting out of Syria and Iraq or in the British Museum. And throughout, like, pretty much the existence of modern Syria and Iraq, both countries have been demanding that the British Museum returns those artifacts to their countries of origin, which are both of them. But if they had ever done that, and they had ever sent back these historical artifacts into Syria and Iraq, chances are very high that a lot of those artifacts actually would have been destroyed by ISIS in the 2010s, because ISIS pretty much destroyed every single historical item that existed within their area of control during the time they controlled parts of Syria and Iraq. It was a genocide of cultural history, pretty much, when ISIS was reigning over certain areas of Syria and Iraq. So it's actually very fortunate that the British Museum held on to some of these historical artifacts, because they wouldn't exist today otherwise. So, you know, not bad. You know, like, I get why people complain about the British Museum, and, you know, because the museum is a collection of everything else around the world. But Britain is a very stable country, and they put a lot of budget into the British Museum. So if the historical artifacts are safe anywhere for future generations of people around the world to see, the British Museum is probably one of those places. Because in the realm of history, it's not so much so about actually having the original country of origin have the piece of history or the artifact. It's more so about just preserving the artifact and making sure that it exists for people in the future to see. That's really what preservation's about. It's more so of a thing of national prestige to have the artifacts, more so than an act of historic preservation, which is something that the public gets confused a lot when talking about artifacts and where they belong. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well, getting off on a whole historic tangent. But still, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, I hope that does address that well while showing Lakota about the ship coins. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to Mr. Diggs, who puts in a 5 and says, "It was a joke. Mayor of Belgorod, not a joke as far as a future Ukrainian border. And the only way this goes well for AFU is to change the Ukrainian border."
And I thank you for the support. And also, let me make sure to read that one very well, because I have to make sure I answer that one a little bit carefully. And let me make sure to go find it. Let's see. It was a joke, man, at Belgorod, not a joke as far as the Ukrainian border. The only way that goes well is change the Ukrainian border. Maybe so, Mr. Diggs. But I don't think the Ukrainians should try and annex Russian territory in the future, because the world has moved on from that. What the Russians own now is what the Russians own, unless if someone can somehow take parts of it from them, like the Chechens, the Ingushetians, and so on. And I don't think the Ukrainians should try and change their border by taking parts of Russia. I think that they should just maintain and preserve their 1991 borders and just keep it at that. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you once again for the support, Mr. Diggs. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Carl, who puts in a 5 and says, "Good job tonight, guys. And thank you, Carl, as always, for that support."
And thank you, Carl. Thank you. And thank you for saying it was a great job. That means a lot for us. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Mars Sevenson, who puts in a 5 and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Mars, for that support. It is greatly appreciated, and thank you for helping to keep us running. And I think that might be your first ever super chat of the channel as well, so huge shout out for that also, and we appreciate it very much. And up next, we have a 5 from Gulashins, who says, "Thank you all for your hard work, and my lady now watches you lads with me. And just a small tip for the floofs."
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for the kind words as well. It means a lot to us, and I gotta say, Galanch, it means a lot to know that y'all are both from New Zealand, and y'all both watching, both of you, the couple, the husband and the wife. It means a lot, and I gotta thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for throwing in a small tip for the floofs, for the little baby puppas, little Sheba and a little Miss Awurg, and they love the support. They do love it. It gets them treats, and they love treats. Sheba needs to lay off the treats a little bit, kind of like myself, but nevertheless, who can resist a delicious, delectable treat? But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, also known as Sarge, who puts in a 2 and says, "LSA, hit that like button. That's an order. And please do hit the like button as well. We're up to, I think, 3,000 and something."
3,030 right now.
Wow.
That's quite a lot. And so, please, I insist, do hit that like button. It does help us out, and it makes us really happy to see the likes go up. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, you wouldn't believe it. But we're on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Patrick Lisberg, who puts in a 2, and that's his first ever support. And huge shout out to you, Patrick, for that. He says, "Hello from Denmark, the NATO member with 1 brigade."
Wait, I had to fact check you there. Y'all actually have 3 brigades. Y'all have 1 division. And I was actually able to find that by looking at the Danish Armed Forces. Check this out. Pretty cool. Oh, bless you. Bless you, son.
Excuse me.
Oh, look at that. My man here has a M4. Is that a monolithic?
That's pretty nice. Is that a Daniel?
I can't tell.
That's not a Daniel. I just say that about every ARSC.
I don't even see like
that looks like maybe a Colt.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a Colt. I know J-Bag will know. Like, J-Bag will know. So let us know what that is. But moving back off of that, I was able to find the Danish military's structure. or at least the Danish army's structure. And let me show it to you. It's right here. Western Regional Command, Command Staff, Jutland Division, and then you'll have an amazing 3 whole brigades. And it doesn't really look like they have a lot in each brigade. It looks like they're well equipped, but not really much. They have a military police for each one. They have a logistics battalion in each brigade, which is really neat. They also have an engineering company for each brigade, which is very good, actually. They also have artillery attached to each brigade. And then they have what appears to be standard infantry, mechanized infantry, then they have the armor, and then they have the staff companies that run these brigades. Then they have an entire artillery regiment off on its own, which is just heavy artillery. I would assume that the artillery attached to the Jutland brigades are probably all like 105 to 155 millimeters in size. This stuff is probably heavier, like a 203 millimeter gun, like a long tom or something like that. And then you have all bunch of just random units that just fall directly under the Jutland Division's command and the Division Staff's command over here. And I would love to go through these, but sadly some of these symbols are eluding me. I know the MP one and the Electronic Warfare one because it just says EW and MP. But beyond that, there isn't really a lot to the Danish army, because this is the whole thing, actually. The Western Regional Command is the only command in the Danish Armed Forces, and that's all of them. And each brigade is about like 3,000 soldiers in size, so that's where most of the Danish Armed Forces force scale comes from. But this is a huge breakaway from the French army structure, which I'll go and show y'all again right here, because it's actually huge, massive compared to what we're seeing here with the Danes. So here we go. Here's the French army, and this is an army that's about 120,000 strong. This is what their actual command structure looks like. And this is compared to the Danish military structure, and this is the whole thing for the army, and this is the whole thing for the French army. And the French army is about, I think, like 12% of the size of the U.S. Army. So you can kind of get a picture of how complex a U.S. command structure would look like, considering this is what the Frenches look like. They have about 120,000 active service members in the French army. And the Danish have about, I think it's like 12,000, and that's what a 12,000 man army looks like right here.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, you know, like, now you can get an idea why there isn't a map like this for the U.S. Army, because it would literally be so big you just couldn't see anything on it. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. And hello to Denmark. It's really cool to know you're from Denmark. It's a really neat country, really interesting one. And also, I actually have a Danish M1 Garand in our collection, which is really cool because actually it's a Danish naval M1 Garand because it actually has the little anchor stamp on the upper receiver that shows that it was used by the Danish Navy, which is really cool because very few Garands were used by the Danish Navy. So it's quite a rare stamp to get on a Garand. But with that, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And with that was our last super chat of the night. So we're moving on to our live chat questions. And up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream like usual. Tonight, we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, David Millsaps, and Toxic Bananas. They said the LSA Signal Corps reports tonight's Morse message is, the light of liberation will never fade from Russian soil. Onwards for free Russia, and long live the LSA.
And that's the sound of money, and y'all hit it dead on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. I gotta congratulate you for getting that correct on the 749th day of the war. Really impressive to hear. Love to hear it. And not only that, it's great to know that the Morse codes, that the LSA Signal Corps is now the name for the Morse code deciphers. Matthew, that would be cool if we actually made some like individual unit flags for like LSA infantry, LSA tankers, the LSA Signal Corps, the LSA logistics corps, stuff like that. That would be really cool to make individual flags, and it's like the LSA Eagle, and there's like extra little things in the background. Or around.
Man, that sounds cool, but I'm not gonna lie, when you say that like in my mind, like just my logistical, like all the setup is taking to get the one flag working, I'm thinking, oh my god, it's gonna be a logistical nightmare.
Oh my god, wow! But, it would be cool if we could do it, but it would probably be really tough. But still, thank you all so much for getting that Morse code message correct. And by the way, before I move on, I have to make sure to give a special shout out to an incredible viewer who did something really cool for us today. I actually went and met him, and the fellow was on stream last night. He's probably on stream tonight, just haven't really seen him in the live chat. But a viewer by the name of Confarelli, I went and visited him today. He actually is in the area, pretty close nearby. And I went and visited him, and he had actually made Matthew and me these special little leather rectangles, pretty much. They're like leather flags that have the Elite Spring Army eagle on them and has LSA at the bottom. It's literally a leather version of the Elite Spring Army flag in the form of a patch. They're incredibly cool. Blew Matthew away when he saw it. He was like, wow, that is so cool, because Matthew
It
loves
was super
leather.
cool, man. I was so impressed with that. And also, I said it to him in the live chat as well. Thank you so much for that as well, because when he brought it home, I was like, oh, that was so kind of them to like send that back. I was very impressed by it, and thank you very much for it as well.
And I got to say, Confarelli, that was incredibly cool. I thank you so much for that. And I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me today, because I got to hang out with Confarelli a little bit where he works. But you know, it was incredible, and I got to thank you so much once again for. Let's see. Oh, well, well, what do you know? You know, and I'm laughing. But beyond that, I gotta thank you so much once again, Comp, really, for the for doing that. That was incredibly kind of you. We love these things, and we already made sure. Matthew made sure to put his, I think, in his room already, and mine's right here in my hand. I've actually been holding this thing tonight for most of the stream, and so with that. Thank you so much once again, Comp. I wanted to make sure to give you a special shout out in the live chat segment about that. That is a very kind thing that you did for us, and we will always make sure to cherish these, because this is actually out before the Lee Spring Army flags got out, so that's pretty cool. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And also, speaking of Confarelli, shout out to all of our Alabama viewers, by the way, as well, because we actually have quite a decent number of Alabama viewers, including Confarelli, that watch the stream. So, huge shout out to y'all as well, because you know who you are. But with that, we're moving on to our first live chat question here, which is going to go to Wondering. He says, I was wondering, and yes, he was. He says, if Russia appears weak and unstable, would China try to nab some territory of Russia?
We've actually talked about that a good amount of stream. It's a great question, by the way, because a lot of people always wonder about that. The answer is most likely no. The reason why I would say, and once again, I want to say this though, while I'm answering your question, I'm pretty certain it's a no. It could be a yes. They could want to take Russian territory, but I feel like it's a smaller chance. And I'll explain why I think it's a no. Right now, the Russians are the ones who are having to spend money administering and running the far eastern regions of Russia. And for the population density out there, they're actually kind of breaking even on the costs it takes to run this area and the kind of benefits that they get out of it. If the Chinese took this place, yeah, they're now in control of the resources in the area, but they're also having to spend the administrative costs running the area, which greatly reduces the benefits that they're getting out of it. So really, the Chinese have a much better deal being well, pretty much tying the Russians to them economically forever, and then getting the cheap resources out of the region without having to pay for the administrative costs of running Eastern Russia. So I would say they're probably not going to take it for that reason, but you never know. I mean, they could try and take it. They could see some sort of a benefit out of it, but I'm doubting it, because nowadays, people don't really have to conquer land to get what they want out of it. They really just have to tie other countries to them economically to be able to do something like that. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. But once again, while I'm saying that they wouldn't take it, you know, take it with a grain of salt. I don't know everything. And maybe the Chinese are thinking about it in a different light than I am. But that's the way I'm looking at it. And for that reason, I don't think they'd ever take it. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to James Bond, who says, how many operational A-50 are left in Russia? What is the number, if you know?
About three of them or four of them. We were understanding it's probably three, because there's another one out there that's like mysterious. We don't really know if it exists or not. And if it does, that means they have four left. If it doesn't, it means they only have three left, and that's after they started with like 7 of them at the beginning of the war. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much for asking a good question. Well, I'm absolutely dying over here. I'm dying, Smalls. I'm dying over here. But with that, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What a night. What a night, Matthew. With that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Death for Real. Not for fake, it's for real. It says, just a thought. How awesome would it be if a freedom soldier took a T-90M back to Ukrainian forces?
Oh, it'd be incredible. I mean, that would be hilarious if they did. And the Ukrainians have gotten their hands on T-90Ms in the past, and there are a few in Ukrainian service. I think there's like 1 or 2 of them. But it would be so funny if a free Russian got a hold of a T-90M and just drove it back. That would be really cool. I'm honestly doubting, though, that there's any T-90Ms in the border region at the moment, because the border guards would probably not be equipped with such a precious tank that the Russian frontline forces could use. So if anything, they'll probably run up on T-72Bs or T-80s of a very early iteration, and maybe capture those and bring those back. But with that, I hope that does answer that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Pepsi Man 101, who put in a live chat. He says, does Russia have functional nukes? And none of the other weapons have proven to be cared for. And why would nukes be the exception?
Nukes are probably being cared for a little bit, at least some of them. I would assume not all of them. Because the cost of maintaining nuclear weapons is really expensive. Some of the cost is put up front in building them, but really the long-term costs are in maintaining a nuclear weapon, and that becomes very tiresome for a country after a while. Very fatiguing to the budget. And I have a feeling that they're probably not able to maintain all of them, but I'm sure they're maintaining some of them, because that's really the only thing that gives Russia a running chance in hell of surviving in this world is their nuclear weapons. So that's probably the reason why there is an exception to every other weapon sucks and is poorly maintained and hardly run, and their aircraft are falling apart in air. But the nuclear weapons are probably maintained at least to a bare minimum, because they have to keep those things operational. Otherwise, if a country like America finds out that none of their nuclear weapons are actually functionable, we may start to eyeball a conventional war with them, and that is a war they will lose every single day. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Historic Tasmanian, who says, do you think the freedom of Russia may circle behind the lines and attack the rear, thus sandwiching the Russian invaders? Is it possible, being ex-service? I would think about this myself.
And can you reread that one again?
They said, do you think the Freedom of Russia Legion may circle behind the lines and attack the rear, thus sandwiching the Russian invaders? And is it possible, being ex-service? I would think of this too.
And yes, it's something that I think they were looking at, but the thing is that the only way they would have made that possible here is if they were conducting the push towards Veluki. And we never saw that actually come around. We reported on that yesterday, but as the Falco War started to clear today, it appears that there was never a push heading towards Veluki, and that may have been a wild hair to send Russian forces towards that town instead of towards where the actual pushes were happening, towards the city of Belgorod and also up at Tetkino. Going off of that, I have a feeling that it'd be very hard for them to try and circle behind the Russian forces, because it appears that their ambitions and goals are to actually take major Russian cities within these oblasts and then try and hold them at the moment. So it would have been strategically possible given what we were hearing yesterday, but not possible today because there is no attacking force that would have the ability to circle behind their lines and capture Russian rear line positions and supply hubs, and then force the Russians into a withdrawal because of that. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Johnson, who says, is there an update if the Freedom of Russia Legion has currently been able to recruit citizens living in Russia to be able to join the push toward Moscow?
Unfortunately, they never really get into the details of if they recruit anyone from their Russian border incursions. Probably for security reasons, so that way the Russians don't know that this guy has defected from so-and-so house, track down his info, track down his papers, find his family, and make him pay. You know, that kind of a thing. So we never really get an idea of how many people they actually recruit from their incursions into Russia. I would assume they have to be a fairly large amount, because the last time they went in, they were a company-sized unit, and now we're assuming that they're about the size of at least a brigade or two. And that is a fairly large increase from the last time we saw them go in, because now they have tank support, they also have artillery support, amongst many other things, and that will require a lot of manpower and effort to be able to do something like that, and still have a large number of infantry. So I hope that does address that well, at least based off of our last instance. We'd assume it's a large amount. But at the same time, we don't really know for sure because they don't really publicize those numbers for, more so the security of the new members. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And actually, this will be the second to last, because I only have 2 left. So this one's going to go to Wondrin, who says, if a Russian POW wants to switch sides and fight against the Kremlin, like the Free Russia Legion, would they no longer be a POW, or would that be against some war convention?
It probably is against a war convention, but I'm not entirely sure, because in World War II, there was a couple of, let me think. There was a couple of Soviet, well, actually, there was a lot of Soviet prisoners that ended up fighting for the Waffen-SS. And also, by the way, just to clarify that, if you fought for anyone, well, if you fought for the Germans in World War II and you were not a German, you ended up fighting in the SS. Just to make that clear, it's not like, oh my God, these guys are brutal. They were never given the option to join the Wehrmacht in the first place. They had to join the SS. And also to clarify that the SS was not a part of the Wehrmacht, the German armed forces. The SS was the armed branch of the Nazi political party, or the Nazi party, pretty much. They were the armed branch of the party, not a member of the armed forces. So they actually fell under a completely different command in World War II, which was led by Heinrich Himmler. And that's also why the concentration camps weren't run by the Wehrmacht, because the concentration camps weren't a Wehrmacht operation, they were an SS operation, an extension of the Nazi party again, and so they fell under the command of the SS. But beyond that, and beyond that explanation real quick, to kind of give a little bit of a groundwork on how those guys, anyone in World War II ended up fighting for the Germans, and they always ended up fighting for the SS instead of the Wehrmacht. I have a feeling that in the current war in Ukraine, there is probably a convention that stops a prisoner of war, someone who surrendered, from joining an armed force and fighting against the country they came from. But I'm kind of doubting if that's really enforced or not, because if these people want to fight, why stop them? Why in the world would the Ukrainians stop them? And why in the world would a convention like that exist? So I would have to say I'm a little bit in the dark on that. I'd assume that there's really nothing wrong with it, and they could do that if they want to. But that's only based off of, a wild guess, pretty much of the point. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be Dale Alaticus, who says, with the good orcs liberating Russia, uprising the South, statue to nutsack, oil refineries smoking, and a possible civil war looming, how do you think the Russian election will come out in 4 days?
How do you think?
He wrote it twice.
I really do think, but I think the election is going to end up being a landslide. They'll probably use that as an explanation to go, wow, Putin won 92% of the vote. It'll probably be something insane, because the elections are rigged. It's not really like anything's actually going to affect the Russian election. They're rigged from the start, so the number is already fixed. It may actually be increased to make it seem like the Russian public is really behind Putin now because of everything going on. So with that, I hope that does address that well, because that's usually how it works. Not really a lot of explaining there, at least from what I think. I think it's a fairly straightforward answer, but if it isn't, I'm sorry. But beyond that, that is the end of tonight's stream. I thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. It has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to run this stream for all of y'all tonight. At the peak tonight, there was 8.5 thousand people here. Unbelievable. And over the course of the stream, there's been 56,000 people that have watched it. I've got to thank every one of y'all so much for watching this stream. I don't view y'all as numbers. We can only see numbers here on the YouTube dashboard, but I know that each one of y'all is a very interesting and very unique person, like all of y'all who are here in the live chat right now. Y'all all have interesting opinions, interesting comments. Y'all have had amazing stories and adventures in your lives, and I'm so glad that we were able to join all of y'all tonight and share with you all the news that we've been able to find over these past 24 hours in picture and video evidence. If you appreciated it a lot, and I'm guessing a lot of y'all did, because there's 4,000 of y'all still here. If y'all appreciate it, make sure to like the stream. Hit the like button if you want. It really does help us. Make sure to comment on it after it becomes a stream, because we get like 20,000 comments while the stream's live, but we only get like 200 after it goes off air. So make sure to comment, because that helps us out greatly, and on top of that, shows us that people found it to be interesting enough to talk about. And also make sure to subscribe. Probably one of the biggest things. Subscribing helps y'all to keep updated when we run these streams, which we run them like clockwork. Y'all really, like, some people don't subscribe, but they know when our streams run, because they run every day at the exact same time. The time that the stream started tonight, which is 10 p.m. Eastern time, local time here in Alabama, it starts... well, actually, it's 9 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central Time, but we start at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, because we always run the channel off of Eastern Time, which is where Washington, D.C. is. But At 10 p.m. Eastern Time, every single night, 6 days a week except for Monday, we always run the stream. And we cover the picture and video evidence of the war that we can find and everything that may be breaking news or maybe big news out there in the war. And so, with that, I hope y'all enjoyed. I hope y'all subscribe. And if you're new, welcome to the Enforcer channel. Welcome to the Lee Spring Army. And I hope you're here to stay because it's a great place. And there's a whole bunch of amazing people here who watch this channel and enjoy it. A lot of them are in the live chat right now. But with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. Thank you all for another great stream tonight. And be sure to join the Enforcer tomorrow evening for a short war summary and then our nightly stream at 10 p.m. Eastern. And once again, that's all from the great one, Slava Ukraine, Heroem Slava, and good night to you all.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль предлагает